Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Shinigami, a tough start against Ryujin Jakka. Chapter 1. Have you heard? That guy named Bailong applied for early graduation. TCH, he's just a clown trying to impress people. Most geniuses are in their first or second grade and apply for early graduation. He's a 5th grader, so he's applying for early graduation. If he could graduate early, I'd stand on my head and have diarrhea. Brother Igarashi is right. At Spiritual Arts Academy, a group of students got together to discuss the 8 trigrams they had recently heard about. Big news! Bailong's early graduation exam will be held at the training ground. The 4 captains of Gote 13 will come to watch. The guy named Igarashi just now felt as if his face was on fire. But he still said the hardest, it's just an assessment. He will definitely fail this exam. Hey, listen to me. Unfortunately, no one listened to his continued harsh words, and everyone gathered at the training ground of Spiritual Arts Academy. In the center of the training ground, a handsome young man wearing a white shirt, red pants, and silver hair stood there. On the rostrum in front of the young man, 4 captain-level figures wearing white feathers were standing. Sir, isn't it just a pre-assessment? Do you still need to come to the Spiritual Arts Academy in person? The middle-aged uncle wearing a pink floral dress and a bamboo hat on his head asked puzzledly. Chun Shui, the teacher came in person, of course he has his reasons, cough. Next to the middle-aged uncle, a sickly handsome guy with white hair who was also wearing a white feather dress said. Era Allah, it's really an accident. I'm also curious about what kind of student it is that Captain Yamamoto can take the 3 of us to see him. The third person who spoke was a girl who looked like Yamato Nadeshiko. An ordinary gentle woman, time has not left any traces on her body, giving people a youthful but completely mature feeling. Humph, of course I have a reason. As for why, you will know later. The leader was an old man, his white beard was neatly trimmed, and his whole person gave people an air of calmness and self-power. Feel. These 4 are none other than the 4 captains of Seraiti Gote 13, Yamamoto Genryusai, Unohana Retsu, and Yamamoto Unohana Retsu's 2 beloved disciples, Hieraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki. These few can be said to be Yamamoto Yuan Lujai is definitely his own team. And standing in the center of the field is naturally a time traveler from Otherworld, who was inexplicably transported to Bailong in the Shinigami world by a dump truck. Hurry up, aren't you taking the graduation exam in advance? This makes me feel like the monkey being tricked. Bailong looked at more and more students watching around the training ground and complained speechlessly in his heart. Originally, when Bailong knew he came to the Shinigami world, he planned to live in a low life, but he had no choice but to end up in Soul Society as soon as he landed. If he were in the present world, Bailong would have slipped back to his hometown. The world of Shinigami can be said to be a high-risk world. If you are not careful, you will die. But now that there is no way to escape, Bailong can only work hard to climb up. At the very least, the safety factor of Gote 13 is still much better than that of Rukongai. Simply put, Bailong is not without support. Travelers come standard with cheat, which was arranged for Bailong. It's just this cheat. Brother, come and chop me down. The system will serve you wholeheartedly. The system interface in front of Bailong really makes Bailong not know how to complain. What the hell is this strong web game trend? If it weren't for being in Soul Society now, Bailong would really be afraid that Brother Chenglong would suddenly come out and shout an advertising slogan. But complaints are complaints, cheat is still easy to use. Although I don't think other cheats have various heaven-defying effects, Bailong's cheat can indeed be said to be simple and crude. Hang up to upgrade. The treasure was cut off. Equipment synthesis. Garbage collection. Good guy, he really said, come and kill me if you're a brother. The AFK upgrade is the simplest and crudest. Go online every day to receive a 24-hour AFK reward, which is equivalent to signing in. You will receive a fixed 100 experience points every day, which means you add up a little. The treasure was cut off. Bailong originally thought that he was losing the treasure by defeating monsters, but it turned out that it was not the case. He was attacked. He ignored any attack damage and received various rewards based on the type of damage received, the location and severity of the injury, ranging from as small as black silk stockings, so large that all the skills and treasures in each world can be exploded, and critical hit rewards will be triggered from time to time, allowing you to get more awesome things. The latter two items have not been unlocked yet, and it is still unclear what the situation is. However, relying on the first two cheats, Beilong easily passed the Spiritual Arts Academy exam, and in the past 5 years, he has greatly improved himself. Name: Beilong. Gender: male. Nonsense, otherwise could it still be female? Title: Student of Spiritual Arts Academy. Hang reward doubled. Lingwei. 4th class 91,001 millionths. White hits: LV5 4,396 10,000ths. Shunpo. LV4 443 1,000ths. Keto. LV5 2,810 thousandths. Details are not displayed temporarily. Swordsmanship. LV5 2,210 thousandths. Soul cutting sword. None. Experience. 2,345 inches. Props. Omitted. Beilong can say, I, Beilong, have the strength he has today only because of his own efforts. Deep Blue, give me some extra. However, recently, Beilong found that the experience he could earn in school had decreased by 10 times. Originally, he could get 10 experience points by punching a student for provoking him, but now he only has 1 point. Beilong originally planned to become the Shilipo sword god, and earn enough experience before leaving the mountain. Once the experience income decreased, Beilong's plan to gain experience was completely shattered. There is no choice. If Beilong wants to protect himself in this dangerous world, he can only choose to graduate early. But what Beilong didn't expect was that his early graduation exam would attract the attention of Gotei 13's captain, Yamamoto Genryusai. Looking at the serious old man on the rostrum, as the most powerful Shinigami in Seoul society at present, Yamamoto Genryusai showed Beilong a smile that was simply terrifying. Surprise. I don't seem to have offended this old man. Looking at Yamamoto Genryusai's smile that can be called nuclear kindness, Beilong couldn't help but reflect on himself. And Yamamoto Genryusai looked at Beilong in the middle of the field and felt really unhappy. It's not because of anything else. Yamamoto Genryusai is not angry with a kid who is not yet 50 years old, but this guy has been in the Spiritual Arts Academy for the past 5 years. It can be said that people hate dogs. Good guy. In the Keto class, a red cannon fired on teacher Keto's hair. In the white hits class, the monkey stole a peach and a sparring student, and stayed up late at night and sang shirtless downstairs in the girls' dormitory. How can one person do this? Ah. If this was an ordinary student, he would have been beaten to death long ago, but this kid, not only was he not beaten to death, but he was getting stronger and stronger, and no matter whose attack hit him, it would be completely ineffective. Originally, Yamamoto Genryusai thought that the Beilong Reiatsu was too high, which prevented others from touching his spirit body. But later, this guy was besieged by the whole school, and he was confused by everything. This was why Yamamoto Genryusai didn't pay attention to it. Just in time, this kid applied to graduate early, and Yamamoto Genryusai also took time out of his busy schedule to come and take a look at what Beilong is all about. That is to say, the current time is 150 years before the start of the plot, and the Science and Technology Development Bureau has not yet been established. Otherwise, these two madmen, Urahara Kazuki and Kuritsuchi Mayuri, would have sliced up Beilong and studied it. Kid, are you ready? Yamamoto asked. Oh, I'm ready. Beilong, who was distracted while standing in the middle of the field, came to his senses after hearing Yamamoto Genryusai's words and replied calmly. Yamamoto Genryusai hadn't felt his blood pressure rise for a long time, but looking at the weak little guy standing in the middle of the field, he suddenly felt that his blood pressure was full. No wonder this kid is so unpopular at Spiritual Arts Academy. Now that you're ready, let me be your opponent for the assessment. Yamamoto originally wanted to see what was going on with Beilong. Seeing how this kid looked like he loved someone, he couldn't help but be provoked by him. The fire in my heart. This kid is miserable. Old man Sean hasn't been angry for a long time. Hieraku Shunsui gloated in the stands. Jashiro Yukitaki also smiled bitterly, but they were not worried about Beilong's safety. Unohana Retsu, the strongest doctor in the entire Seoul society, was here. Nothing will go wrong at all. Yamamoto Genryusai came to the court as a shunpo, still holding his wooden crutch made of reiatsu. Beilong's pupils shrank. My dear, what is this sense of deja vu like? You passed the novice tutorial, go and kill the boss at the end of the level. How can anyone take the graduation assessment to Yamamoto Genryusai? I don't study well, don't lie to me. However, Yamamoto Genryusai came to an end. Hiroku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki also sighed and drove away the students and teachers who were about to watch. After all, Yamamoto Genryusai's Reiatsu is not something ordinary people can bear. Captain, you must teach Beilong a lesson. Avenge us, Captain. Woo, that fool Beilong is finally leaving. My blood pressure is finally back to normal. The audience who was driven away still reluctantly warned Yamamoto Genryusai. This made Yamamoto Genryusai a little speechless. What on earth did this boy do to make his popularity become like this? Beilong looked at Yamamoto Genryusai and spread his hands helplessly. Didn't he just burn the hair of the female classmate and soak the clothes of the male classmate in stinky tofu water? Isn't this all about becoming stronger? Good guy, he is quite shameless. Kid, it's too late for you to regret it now, I won't hold back. Yamamoto warned after seeing the audience disperse. Beilong smiled and said, "It's okay, Captain, just take action." Beilong's face burst into laughter when he saw Yamamoto Genryusai's end. Good guy, if Yamamoto Genryusai cuts him down, how many good things will come out? How could you refuse such a good thing? Seeing Beilong's confident look, Yamamoto nodded, very good, he likes this kind of child who doesn't know how to live or die. Moreover, Beilong's Reiatsu is not hidden. The four captains present can certainly see that Beilong's Reiatsu already has the superior deputy captain's Reiatsu. Levels 12 to 10 are captain level Reiatsu, levels 9 to 6 are officer level Reiatsu, levels 5 and 4 are deputy captain level Reiatsu, and levels 3 and above are captain level Reiatsu. The difference between each level are more than 10 times. This is why ordinary team members and lower-level officers even have a luxury to live when facing captain-level Reiatsu. Yamamoto Genryusai glanced at Beilong approvingly. If nothing else, this kid is very brave. Even when facing himself, he has no intention of avoiding a fight. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded and had no intention of using the soul-cutting sword. After all, there was no need to use the sword to deal with a little guy with a mere 4th-level spiritual power. Yamamoto Genryusai's body was shaken, and the white Captain Haori hung on the spectator seat. The muscles on his body became tense. Looking at Beilong, who had no intention of drawing his sword, he shouted, "Kid! Stop looking down on people, come up. Just use your full strength." "Ah, it's not necessary at all." Seeing Yamamoto Genryusai, who was full of fighting spirit, Beilong did not draw his sword, but said provocatively. Of course, it's definitely not because Beilong doesn't know Shikai at all. Yamamoto Genryusai's eyes flashed with coldness, and the anger in his heart became more intense. Shunpo moved his feet and hit Beilong's chest with a single fist like a cannonball. One bone. The huge wind pressure brought by the fist was so strong that Beilong couldn't even open his eyes. However, Beilong not only did not dodge, but also looked ecstatic. Boom. The fist hit Beilong and made a dull sound, but what shocked Yamamoto Genryusai was that instead of sending Beilong flying, Beilong was not hurt at all. Yamamoto Genryusai's heart sank. Sure enough, it was not Reiatsu's fault. Double bones. Yamamoto Genryusai, who does not believe in evil, uses both fists this time. But Beilong still didn't react when he was hit by a fist. If it weren't for the big tree behind him cracking and the ground beneath him cracking, others would have thought Yamamoto Genryusai didn't attack. Can you do it, Captain? What, kid, don't get too carried away. Eat me Ryujin Jakka. Ding, host was injured by white hits. The damage type is impact, the location of the injury is the whole body, and the degree of injury is fatal. The damage has been absorbed. Congratulations to host for gaining 100,000 experience points. Ding. In just 2 attacks, Yamamoto Genryusai provided Beilong with 300,000 experience points. This is more experience than Beilong accumulated in 5 years at Spiritual Arts Academy. Seeing the information constantly refreshing in his system, Beilong could hardly open his eyes. Good guy, if he had known that Yamamoto Genryusai could provide him with so much experience at one time, he would have run to a place where he wanted to die. The squadron has gone. After all, Beilong himself doesn't know what the upper limit of his system's absorption is. The system doesn't say it. Beilong himself doesn't dare to waste it casually. If it overturns, it will be so frustrating. But now it seems that the 1 and 2 bones that can kill the Fire Prince are far from the upper limit of the system. A somewhat arrogant Beilong asked Yamamoto Genryusai a question. Well, sure enough, looking at Yamamoto Genryusai opposite, whose beard was almost crooked with anger, Beilong felt that he was quite talented in provocation. Of course, Yamamoto Genryusai will not lose his mind because of such a simple provocation. In fact, judging from the situation just now, he poses no threat to Beilong at all with white hits alone. Just look at the shattered ground beneath their feet and the nonchalant Beilong. There's definitely a reason why this kid wasn't beaten to death. So Yamamoto Genryusai took advantage of the slope and decisively chose to pull out his own Ryujin Jakka. Everything in the world is reduced to ashes, Ryujin Jakka. The moment Yamamoto Genryusai pulled out the soul-cutting sword, the expressions of Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki in the stands changed. Hey, Mr. Sean is not serious. It's just a test. Do you need to free the soul-sanding sword? Kyoraku Shunsui put away his cynical smile and supported Reiatsu, who was blown away by Yamamoto Genryusai. The hat flew out and said seriously. Cough cough cough. Teacher, he must have his own plan. Cough cough cough. Jashiro Yukitaki still looked weak, but even so, facing Yamamoto Genryusai's volcanic Reiatsu, no discomfort whatsoever. Unohana Retsu immediately set up barriers around the training ground. Although he is best at kendo, Kido is not weak either. Positive Yamamoto Genryusai's Beilong feels like he is standing next to the sun. That blazing Reiatsu seems to burn Beilong directly. Just by liberating Reiatsu of the soul Zantodo, Beilong's system has already begun to collect experience by leaps and bounds. Ding! Host was burned by Reiatsu. The damage type was continuous soul impact. The injured location was the whole body. The degree of injury was minor injury, right pointing arrow fatal. The damage has been absorbed, and the experience continues to increase. Seeing Yamamoto Genryusai become serious, Beilong couldn't help but raise his voice. Facing such Yamamoto Genryusai, if the system cannot withstand his attack, Beilong can only pray that Unohana Retsu's medical skills are powerful enough. Yamamoto Genryusai turned his wrist, and a wall of flames surrounded the two of them. Yamamoto Genryusai slowly walked toward Beilong with a knife. Kid, I hope you won't die by my sword. After saying that, Yamamoto Genryusai's eyes widened, and the black Shinigami kimono on his body was completely scattered around Yamamoto Genryusai's waist, revealing Yamamoto Genryusai's body full of scars. Is this the strongest Shinigami, the power of Yamamoto Genryusai? Beilong was secretly frightened. Although he was provoking Yamamoto Genryusai, he never denied the power of Yamamoto Genryusai. This is an opponent that even Aizen and Yuach can only play tricks on. Even more, this is Yamamoto Genryusai who is going downhill again. Considering that he was still within the Seraiti, Yamamoto Genryusai did not use a powerful large-scale attack move, but sheathed the sword, one move, caressing slash. In an instant, Yamamoto Genryusai disappeared from Beilong's sight. Just listen to the sound of dang, like the sound of metal colliding. The Ryujin Jakka in Yamamoto Genryusai's hand has completely chopped into Beilong's chest. Before Beilong could react at all, Yamamoto Genryusai's attack was over. However, this time the attack still did not work. Yamamoto Genryusai's pupils shrank and he opened the distance between him and Beilong. However, in fact, Beilong couldn't capture Yamamoto Genryusai's figure at all. Beilong's eyes just flashed, and Yamamoto Genryusai returned to the position before the attack. If the system had not prompted him, Beilong would not even know that Yamamoto Genryusai had launched an attack. Beilong is breaking out in a cold sweat. This is really the system, Dad, saving my life. Without the system, Beilong would have died a long time ago. Seeing that Beilong was still unharmed, Yamamoto Genryusai nodded. He really didn't believe this evil. You must see where Beilong's upper limit is. Loose. Teacher. Old man Sean. Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki saw that Yamamoto Genryusai wanted to continue attacking, so Shunpo quickly moved his feet and stopped in front of Yamamoto Genryusai. Yamamoto Genryusai, who originally planned to continue fighting, also came to his senses and watched the disciples who were about to draw their swords slowly put Ryujin Jakka into the sheath. Of course, the wall of fire surrounding several people also dispersed, and some of them were embarrassed. Yamamoto Genryusai disappeared directly from the scene, leaving only one sentence. Come to the team building to report tomorrow. Hiroku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki were relieved to see Yamamoto Genryusai leave. They were really afraid that their teacher would continue to free the Soul Zantodo. Yamamoto Genryusai's bad temper is enough to do such a thing. Beilong was a little regretful. He wanted to continue harvesting wool, but was stopped by the two of them, but he still needed to express his gratitude. Thank you, Captain Kyoband and Captain Jashiro, for your help. Beilong is not a person without courtesy. If it weren't for the dog system, he would actually be a very easy person to get along with. Hiroku Shunsui waved his hand, looked at Beilong with complicated eyes and said, No, it's just convenient. Jashiro Yukitaki smiled and said, Beilong, you passed the assessment, welcome to join Gote 13. Beilong exchanged greetings with the two of them, said hello to Unohana Retsu, and then left the training ground. Don't forget to report to the first team tomorrow. Jashiro Yukitaki warned as he looked at Beilong leaving. Know it. Looking at Beilong leaving, Hiroku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki also shook their heads slightly. Hiroku Shunsui adjusted his bamboo hat and said with a smile, It seems that we have one more junior brother. According to the teacher's temperament, this junior brother will definitely not be able to escape. Jashiro Yukitaki also said a little helplessly. Unohana Retsu in the stands looked at Beilong leaving with interest in his eyes. Interesting guy. I really want to try to chop him with a knife. Unohana Retsu's hand involuntarily touched the handle of the knife at his waist. If he hadn't remembered that this was the Spiritual Arts Academy and 1,000 years of chi nurturing kung fu, according to Unohana Retsu's character, seeing this kind of sandbag that was completely indestructible, he said you have to try your hand at everything. As for Beilong, there's certainly a reason why he's so eager to leave. Beilong returned to his dormitory and immediately sealed the door with Kido. Just because of his bad popularity in the college, no one shared a room with him, giving Beilong a private space. Make sure Beilong is safe around and open the system immediately. Ding! The host is damaged, triggering a 10,000 times critical hit. Get additional rewards. Congratulations to host for receiving a mysterious fire soul-slaying sword. Beilong rubbed his hands in excitement. This was the first time Beilong had triggered such a high critical multiplier. The items Beilong got before were all sword moves, food, and other things that had little impact on the battle. This was the first time he got a treasure like the soul-slaying sword. According to Shinigami's settings, any Soul Zenkin sword has Bankai's ability. However, some Soul Zenkin swords are limited by the host and cannot reach this level at all. So even if it is an ordinary fire-type soul-cutting sword, Beilong is very happy. After all, there are no useless swords, only useless Shinigami, right? The ability of the soul-cutting sword depends on the holder. In addition, this is a big treasure released by Yamamoto Genryusai, and it is definitely not comparable to some Japanese products. With this expectation, Beilong accepted this reward. Congratulations to host for receiving the fire-type soul-slaying sword, the Flame Sword, Raging Fire, and its supporting fantasy drive book. Beilong looked at the fiery sword Liehuo in his hand and the driver book in his backpack, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Good guy, do you call this a soul-slaying knife? Are you bullying me for not watching Kamen Rider? This is clearly the transformer of Kamen Rider's Holy Blade. Beilong was speechless for a while, but still checked Liehuo's instructions. Fire Flame Sword, Fire. The Holy Sword from Otherworld has the power of sacred flames, can drive fantasy books to fight, and transform into the Holy Blade of Kamen Rider. The growth system of this Soul Zanting sword is extremely high. After fully mastering the power of the Soul Zanting sword, the Soul Zanting sword will enter the Bankai form, the 10 Holy Blades. Current mastery level 10%. Beilong nodded with satisfaction. This thing is indeed a very powerful soul-cutting sword. The system has optimized the state of the fire sword according to the settings of the Shinigami world. Now it is an authentic soul-cutting sword. Unfortunately, Agni does not come with a sword spirit, and he cannot transform into a Kamen Rider. When using different drive books, he only attributes the power to his own spirit body. But Beilong is very satisfied with this. After all, Things like the 10 holy blades can reshape the world. The end point of Fiery Sword Fiery is definitely Fantasy Omnipotence, which is a powerful fantasy-driving book that can compete with Yuacha's Omniscience. Beilong is a little bit curious to see whether the Fantasy Omnipotence is stronger or the Omniscience and Omnipotence is stronger. But it is a pity that the integration of Beilong and Fiery Sword Liehuo is not enough now. The 10% mastery level can only use 2 volumes, and even the power of the Crimson Flying Dragon in 3 volumes cannot be used. Not to mention Dragon Knights, Ancient Dragons, and Elemental Dragons. Putting away the Fiery Sword Liehuo, Beilong lay on his bed with satisfaction. It was obvious that Yamamoto Genryuji valued him very much in today's assessment, otherwise he would not have arranged a division for himself, but would have asked him to go there. The team reported. In fact, the division that Beilong wants to go to the most is the 4th division. After all, Yamamoto Genryusai cannot always have time to fight with him, but Unohana Retsu is different. The 4th division is usually not busy during non-war times. This unparalleled villain in Soul Society is an experience-gaining artifact. Definitely not Beilong, who was attracted by Unohana Retsu's big conscience. Absolutely not. The next day, the first team arrived at the team building. "Hello," the captain asked me to report. Beilong spoke to the middle-aged gentleman with silver hair and a mustache on his face. "Oh, Beilong, who graduated from Spiritual Arts Academy, the captain has been waiting for you for a long time, come with me." "Thank you. Of course, this is Yamamoto Genryusai's right-hand man, the first Shinigami to die in the 1,000-year Blood War, and the deputy captain of the 1st Division, Chojiro Sasaki." Chojiro Sasaki wears a small suit and a unique white haori. He is the only vice-captain who is not a captain and can wear white haori. The two were not familiar with each other and had no further communication. Chojiro Sasaki brought Beilong to the door of the kendo training room, bowed slightly and said, "Please come in, His Excellency Genryusai is in the room." Beilong saluted equally politely, opened the door and entered the kendo training room. As soon as I entered, I saw Yamamoto Genryusai practicing kendo with a wooden sword in hand. Yamamoto Genryusai held the sword with both hands, exerted force on both arms, and slashed straight forward with the wooden sword. Beilong couldn't help but nodded. Even as the captain, Yamamoto Genryusai did not reduce his practice for any day. It can be said that as long as this old man is here, Gote 13 will be there. Beilong didn't mean to rush him, he just found a place to sit down and carefully studied Yamamoto Genryusai's kendo. Yamamoto Genryusai had a look of approval in his eyes, but he didn't stop. After completing a round of practice, he put away his wooden sword and sat in front of his desk. "Kid, you're late today," Yamamoto Genryusai said leisurely as he picked up a cup of tea. In this scene, you can't tell at all that this old man is the leader of Gote 13, a violent organization. "You didn't say when you wanted me to come." "Of course I'll come when I wake up." Beilong didn't mean to be nervous, and still treated Yamamoto Genryusai with a normal attitude. After hearing what Beilong said, Yamamoto Genryusai was not angry at all. After drinking the tea in his hand, he said, "Kid, do you know why I asked you to report to the first team? You don't seem to be surprised at all. Now, it's nothing more than accepting me as a disciple, or asking me to join the first team. What's the big surprise?" Beilong said speechlessly. If he can't see such a simple thing, he shouldn't hang out in Soul Society. Find a place to wait to die. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded. Very good. Today's Beilong is completely different from the Beilong who was so angry that he didn't pay for his life. This kid is serious, which is quite worrying. So, what do you think? However, Beilong's behavior surprised Yamamoto Genryusai. Beilong saluted directly and said, "Master, please bow to me." His actions were so agile that even Yamamoto Genryusai was stunned for a moment. "It seems like there are a lot of words stuck in my throat and I can't say them out." But now that Beilong has already bowed, Yamamoto Genryusai is no longer holding the position. He helps Beilong up and laughs, "Ha ha ha ha, okay, from today on, you are my closed disciple." Beilong approached Yamamoto Genryusai with a smile on his face and said, "Master, I've already become a disciple. Isn't there any apprenticeship ceremony?" Yamamoto Genryusai looked at Beilong speechlessly. The little guy who was so serious just now has immediately revealed his true nature. Yamamoto Genryusai knocked Beilong on the forehead with a knife, and said angrily, "You brat, I asked for a gift as soon as you walked in." Beilong didn't feel any pain at all. Instead, he looked at Yamamoto Genryusai eagerly. Yamamoto Genryusai was both angry and funny. He said helplessly, "I've prepared your gift. You'll know when the time comes." Beilong immediately changed his face again and said, "Thank you, master." Yamamoto Genryusai waved his hands speechlessly and said, Okay, get out of here, come to the dojo early tomorrow morning, and I will teach you how to practice in person." After hearing what Yamamoto Genryusai said, Beilong left the kendo training room happily. The matter of becoming Yamamoto Genryusai's teacher was actually not part of Beilong's plan at the beginning. He also didn't expect that by chance, Yamamoto Genryusai would come to examine him in person. Originally, he thought that he could just hug Kiraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki's thighs. After all, Yamamoto Genryusai's direct descendants were not affected from the beginning to the end. Any threat. Being able to take Yamamoto Genryusai as my disciple is an unexpected blessing. You know, there are only two people who can say that they are the captain's apprentices, Kiraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki. Under the arrangement of Chojiro Sasaki, Beilong also moved from the Spiritual Arts Academy to the first team's team building, living a life of dire straits. "You brat, look at the sword. 1 bone, 2 bones. You kid, can you do it? Can't you hold on for such a short time? Get up and swing your sword 10,000 times. Come on, chop me with a knife. It's no use if others can't beat you. You have to learn how to hack your enemies to death. Smelly old man, you are so verbose. What, you brat, it seems you are not tired after all. You will train twice as much tomorrow." "I was wrong, my dear master. Good guy." Beilong has been receiving devil training from Yamamoto Genryusai since the second day. Apart from anything else, Yamamoto Genryusai had no intention of hiding any secrets from Beilong as his apprentice, and taught Beilong all his understanding of the 4 techniques of Zon Fist and Walking Ghost. Beilong can absorb damage, but training fatigue is not something Beilong can do. Every day Beilong was trained like a dead dog by Yamamoto Genryusai. If it weren't for the increase in experience on his own panel, Beilong really wouldn't be able to survive. Name: Beilong. Gender: male. Title: Captain's Closed Disciple, 3 times the reward for hanging up. Lingwei: 4th class 999,001 millionths. White hits: LV 6 inches. Shunpo: LV 6 inches. Kido: LV 7 inches. Swordsmanship: LV 7 inches. Soul-cutting sword, fire flame sword fiery. 40%. The training lasted for 10 years, Beilong's various numerical values have made great progress, and Lingwei will soon break through to the captain level. Of course, during the past 10 years, Beilong has basically never left the first team. Except for Kiraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki, and Unohana Retsu, who are absolutely direct descendants of the captain, almost no one knows that Beilong has become a disciple of the captain. Others only knew that the captain had taken on a new apprentice, but they didn't know who it was. Kendo training room. "Old guy, take a stab at me and you'll get a lot of gold coins." The wooden sword in Beilong's hand stabbed Yamamoto Genryusai's chest at a weird angle. Yamamoto Genryusai doesn't care about Beilong's verbal attacks at all. After so many years of training, Yamamoto Genryusai has long been accustomed to Beilong's verbal attacks. The wooden sword in his hand was not disturbed at all, and it easily blocked Beilong's sneak attack. "Tch," Beilong muttered with some pity. In the past few years, Yamamoto Genryusai has become less and less concerned about his verbal attacks. He still likes the old man who gets angry every time he speaks. Yamamoto Genryusai opened his eyes slightly, swung the wooden sword in his hand away from Beilong's wooden sword, and decisively slashed forward to hit Beilong's chest. "Ha, you've been fooled, old man." Beilong didn't panic when he saw Yamamoto Yuanlujai's counterattack. Instead, he was very happy. He didn't know when he took out a dark sword made of wood with his left hand. In a strange posture, Beilong flashed while Yamamoto Genryusai was attacking. A sword hit Yamamoto Genryusai's clothes. Not even Yamamoto Genryusai could react to this move. "Ha, smelly old man, you finally let me win for once." Beilong dropped the wooden sword in his hand and laughed. Is this Unohana's move? Are you going to fight her? Yamamoto looked at Beilong in surprise. That's right, this is the sword move I learned from Captain Ujihua. It's not bad at all. Beilong put his hands on his hips proudly. He also knew that this move could only be used once. Once Yamamoto Genryusai was prepared, it would be absolutely impossible to succeed. After listening to Beilong's words, Yamamoto Uenyazai looked at him speechlessly. In the past 10 years, he still couldn't figure out Beilong's character, so his thousands of years of life have been in vain. What sword moves did you learn from Unohana Retsu? Are you copying his sword moves? You have a greedy body, you are despicable. Yamamoto Genryusai himself is embarrassed to say it. Moreover, there is another reason why Beilong worships Yamamoto Genryusai as his disciple, that is, he wants to control the entire Soul Society, including the Soul King Palace. The first step is to master Gote 13. If you are not a direct disciple of Yamamoto Genryusai, you will not be able to serve as the captain of Gote 13. Even though Yamamoto Genryusai didn't usually say anything, before his death, his most favored successors were his two direct disciples. Whether it is Noblesse or 46 Rooms, their ideas are exactly the same as those of Yamamoto Genryusai. The identity of this closed disciple of Yamamoto Genryusai is quite important. After finally sneaking up on the old man without showing any moral integrity, Beilong was still humming a tune and preparing to go out for a walk. As soon as they walked out of the gate of the first team, a strong wind hit. A woman with a purple ponytail and a special black dress directly wrapped her arms around Beilong's neck. Beilong's head involuntarily hit a huge dumpling above. Hey, isn't this Beilong? Where are you going? A slightly provocative voice sounded in Beilong's ear. The person who came was none other than the current captain of the 2nd Division, the current head of the Shihuin family, Shihuin Yoruichi. A beautiful black-skinned lady. Of course, the current Yoruichi does not have the sense of a royal sister she later had. She is full of youthfulness and has a carefree personality that makes her loved by the team members. Beilong also reacted immediately and quickly begged for mercy. Isn't this my dear Captain Yoruichi of the 2nd Division? Why do you have time to come and play with our 1st Division? The acquaintance of Beilong and Yoruichi was very dramatic. Yoruichi's grandfather Shihuin Seni was preparing to retire, so he brought his granddaughter to Yamamoto Genryujai for inspection. It was said to be an inspection, but in fact it was just to visit a mountain and let Yamamoto Genryusai take care of it. Look at my granddaughter. So, the two living treasures Yoruichi and Beilong met at the kendo training ground. When they first met, Beilong burned the orange outfit Yoruichi was wearing. Of course Yoruichi was not one to suffer a loss. She used her superb shunpo to shave Beilong's head like a dog. The two never knew each other and became bad friends. Although Yoruichi is older than Beilong, his behavior reveals a clear sense of stupidity. Beilong deceived him into calling him brother. Of course, after knowing that Beilong was younger than her, Yoruichi never screamed again. However, these two like-minded guys have caused trouble for Yamamoto Genryusai. Today they either set the house on fire and tomorrow they beat up the nobles in the street. However, these two people have strong backgrounds. A direct disciple of the captain and the new head of the 5 noble families have made this group of Seraiti Shinigami and nobles really miserable. The two of them can be regarded as forming a revolutionary friendship. After the sneak attack on the old man today, Beilong originally went to Yoruichi to celebrate. Unexpectedly, Yoruichi had a close connection with him and came to the first team in advance. Yoruichi listened to Beilong's plea for mercy and had no intention of letting go of his steel-like arms. Although with this action now, you can't tell whether he is restricting Beilong or rewarding Beilong. Let go now. Fortunately, I have good news and want to inform you as soon as possible. Beilong deliberately pretended to be aggrieved. But Yoruichi, who had already figured out Beilong's character, had no intention of being deceived by him. Just when he was about to refute Beilong, a petite figure appeared in front of Beilong and the two of them, and a pleasant voice rang out. Lord Yoruichi, I'm late. Please don't do such a disgraceful thing, Lord Yoruichi. At the same time, the man looked at Beilong's eyes and even wanted to spit fire. This woman is slender and wears the uniform of the criminal army. Unlike other covert mobile members, this woman does not wear a mask and has dark blue broken hair. If there is no anger on her beautiful face at this time, then it is estimated that it will be more beautiful. Of course, this is the next captain of the second division, the absolute chef Yoruichi, Soi Fan. Xiao Soi Aya, don't be so serious. Wait for me and I'll ask him to beg for mercy right away. Yoruichi didn't pay attention to Soi Fan's words at all, and instead laughed. Soi Fan looked at Beilong, who was obviously enjoying his expression, and the anger on his forehead became even more intense. But Lord Yoruichi, this guy obviously seems to be enjoying himself. Soi Fan said angrily. If she hadn't known that she couldn't beat Beilong, she would have taken action long ago. Yoruichi was stunned after hearing Soi Fan's words, and looked down. Sure enough, Beilong had a happy look on his face, and he didn't care about his control at all. Yoruichi couldn't help but get angry and said coldly, "Hey, Beilong, you are enjoying yourself." Beilong also came to his senses at this time. When Soi Fan arrived, he knew that his good days were over. He reluctantly left Yoruichi's soft dumplings and said, "How is that possible? Obviously I'm going to faint." Yoruichi punched Beilong angrily, but nothing happened except providing Beilong with a little experience. Obviously, Yoruichi himself didn't care about this, or in other words, this was Yoruichi's acquiescence. Soi Fan watched the interaction between Beilong and Yoruichi, and the anger in his eyes became even stronger. Sure enough, a man like him who covets Yoruichi-sama's body should just die. It feels quite like an old father watching the will-o-wisp boy. By the way, Beilong, didn't you say you have good news? Please tell me and listen to it. Yoruichi immediately changed the subject. Although he was casual, Yoruichi did not have this attitude towards all men. Well, let's go. Our tavern says that Mr. Bai will pay for today's consumption. Really? Then I'm not polite. Yoruichi's eyes started to shine when he heard that there was alcohol. The two of them ran towards the tavern in Seraiti one after the other. Wait for me, Lord Yoruichi. Within a few seconds of Soi Fan's sight, the two people had disappeared, and Shunpo quickly chased after them. In the pub. What? Did you defeat the old man? Yoruichi looked at Beilong in disbelief. It's not that easy. You can only use it once. Beilong rolled his eyes at Yoruichi. He knew very well that if the old man didn't know that he had this dark sword and was training, with his current self, he wouldn't be able to do it at all. There is a way to touch the old man. How did you do it? Teach me, teach me. Yoruichi was obviously very excited. Beilong told the story again, rubbed the girl's purple hair and said with a smile, "You will never think about this trick in your life." Yoruichi pushed Beilong's hand away and glared at Beilong in displeasure. Soi Fan, who had just entered the tavern, saw the intimate interaction between the two and was so angry that he drew his knife on the spot and prepared to kill Beilong. Sting the enemy, Suzumaki. Beilong, who was still interacting with Yoruichi, didn't care about Soi Fan's attack at all. He had not lived in vain for the past 10 years. At least he confirmed one thing, that is, even Yamamoto Genryusai's residual fire sword was not affected by it. Find a way to break through your own defenses. This is also the main reason why Beilong is so promiscuous now. He cannot die or be sealed. Of course Beilong will become promiscuous. Otherwise, according to Beilong's character, he would definitely avoid Aizen Sosuke and you watch. Take your hands off Yoruichi-sama. With a boom sound, the Suzumaki on Soi Fan's hand accurately pierced Beilong's waist, but unfortunately, Beilong didn't even break a bit of skin. Soi Fan's attack only provided Beilong with 1000 experience points. Beilong only reacted after being attacked, reached out to grab the small and exquisite Soi Fan, with a malicious smile on his face, put his mouth to Soi Fan's ear and said, "Xiao Shoaya, you don't want Yoruichi to be bullied by me." Quote. Soi Fan's face turned red and he cursed, "You. Let go. I will never let you bully Yoruichi-sama." However, the current Soi Fan, that is, the strength of the high-ranking chief officer, was completely unable to break away from Beilong's hands. Yoruichi hit Beilong speechlessly. Okay, stop bullying Xiao Aya, come and drink with me." Quote. Beilong also pretended to regret and let go of Soi Fan, and hooked up with Yoruichi. The two drank together skillfully, while Soi Fan sat aside like a frustrated little daughter-in-law, while Beilong and the three of them were in the private room. Otherwise, if other people saw it, they would think Beilong did something to Soi Fan. But Soi Fan looked at Beilong, who was having a lot of fun with Yoruichi, and secretly swore in her heart, "Beilong, I will never let you bully Mr. Yoruichi." But if there was no blush on her face, she might be more convincing. Higher. The next day, Beilong woke up from his dormitory after being drunk. Beilong rubbed his eyes hard, and suddenly felt that half of his body was numb. When he turned around, he saw Yoruichi lying in his arms like a kitten. Beilong was shocked and quickly opened the quilt to see that his clothes were still there. Then he breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, drinking will make things worse. At the same time, he was also complaining about his own system, which was not immune to alcohol, but it was right to think about it. After all, alcohol is not harmful to the body unless he drinks it to a certain extent, so Beilong didn't think about it in detail. Looking at Yoruichi sleeping soundly in his arms, Beilong smiled, rubbed Yoruichi's face and said, "Little wildcat, it's time to get up." Yoruichi, who felt that his little face was being ravaged, woke up with a cry and found himself lying in Beilong's arms. His first reaction was, "It's over. I pushed Beilong last night." I have to say, this reaction is very Yoruichi. But soon, Yoruichi realized that nothing happened between the two of them, so he pushed Beilong's hand away angrily and said, "You've been hugging me all night, and you still won't let me go." Beilong rolled his eyes. "With your name as Flash Goddess Yoruichi, if you wanted to leave, you would have run away long ago. I think it's because you don't want to leave my arms. The teacher is right, boys must be outside, protect yourself." Beilong deliberately pretended to look pitiful. Seeing that his purpose was discovered, Yoruichi simply stopped pretending, put his arms around Beilong's waist and said, "Since you know everything, why don't you marry our Shihuan family?" As expected of Yoruichi, he said something incredible directly. "How is it possible to get married? I'm Old Man Shan's apprentice. If I get married, Old Man Shan won't use his Ryujin Jakka to turn me into a roasted sweet potato," Beilong said exaggeratedly. Yoruichi looked at Beilong's reaction and chuckled. Of course she knew that it was impossible for Yamamoto Genryushi's close disciple to marry into her Shihuan family. The reason why she asked this was to test whether Beilong really liked her. Now that he got the answer, Yoruichi was very satisfied, but on the surface he still pretended, "What? You want to eat it up and deny it?" "Of course not, I was just thinking about what conditions the Shihuan family would need to marry off the head of the family." After hearing Beilong's words, Yoruichi laughed and said, "With your current strength, if you dare to come to propose marriage, my grandfather will beat you out on the spot." This is true. If a fourth-level Shinigami dares to say that he wants to marry the current head of the Shihuan family, it would be considered a kindness of the Shihuan family if he is not beaten to death on the spot and his ashes are scattered. However, who is Beilong? He is hanging on the wall. Dark blue, add more. Yesterday's experience from Soi Fan was added to Reiatsu. In an instant, Beilong changed from a fourth-class spiritual power to a captain-level floor, a third-class spiritual power. There was a strong Reiatsu coming from Beilong, but Beilong controlled it very well and did not damage the surrounding environment. Only Yoruichi, who was in direct contact with him, felt this. "Has your Reiatsu reached the captain level?" Yoruichi asked in surprise. Beilong hugged Yoruichi's hand a little harder and promised, "Although I am still a third-class spiritual power, I will progress faster. When I reach the second-class spiritual power, I will go to Shihuan's house to propose marriage." Yoruichi felt warm in his heart when he heard Beilong's promise, and buried his little face in Beilong's arms. "If those old guys at home don't agree, I will elope with you." If others said it, Beilong really wouldn't believe it, but Yoruichi said that he absolutely believed it. After all, this is the player who dared to defect from Soul Society. Feeling Yoruichi's affection for him, Beilong tightened his arms again, and the two lay quietly until another voice sounded. "Where is this? How did I get here?" A petite figure suddenly sat up on the floor of the dormitory, looking at everything around him in confusion. "It's Soi Fan." Yoruichi and Beilong were not the only ones who drank too much last night. The two of them also reacted very quickly, and they were already sitting at the table with Shunpo as soon as they saw Soi Fan wake up. "Xiao Shouling, haven't you had enough sleep? We are going home." It has to be said that Yoruichi's heart is very strong and he immediately struck preemptively. Or do you want to sleep a little longer in Beilong's room? What? Beilong's room? The girl screamed. Neither Beilong nor Yoruichi was surprised by Soifan's reaction. After all, Soifan, the chef of Yoruichi, showed his hostility towards Beilong on the surface. Yoruichi was also afraid that Soifan would find something, so he quickly left Beilong's home with Soifan. After all, she, the captain of the second team, did not return to the team building all night, so there was still a slight problem. Beilong went to the 4th Division team building alone, which is Saraiti's hospital. Today is the day for Beilong to take Kaido class. Of course, Beilong's learning of Kaido is not the purpose is to teach Kaido. The living room of Maujawajai. Holding a cup of tea in her hand, Unohana Retsu, still looking like Yamato Nadeshiko, looked at Beilong, who came in and said softly, "Era, I thought you wouldn't come today, Beilong." "How is that possible? Of course I won't forget today's class." Beilong was not polite and sat beside Unohana Retsu, picking up a cup of tea that had been prepared for him and drinking it down in one gulp. Obviously, both of them are used to this way of getting along. Unohana Retsu frowned slightly and thought to himself, "You must have been drinking with that little girl from the 2nd Division last night. She smells like a wild cat." However, Maojawa didn't express anything on the surface. Instead, she stood up and looked at Beilong and said, "Then, today's class is about to begin." Beilong also stood up, and a small red book appeared in his hand. With a flick of his hand, the small book opened a white door and appeared in front of the two of them. The two entered the gate one after the other and came to another world. This is the ability of Beilong's fantasy book. After all, Unohana Retsu and Beilong's courses are relatively violent and are a severe test to the surrounding environment. In addition, the two did not want others to see the teaching process between them, so they came to the fantasy world. Here, no matter how much damage is caused, the fantasy book will automatically repair it. The two came to a vast training ground and faced each other. Unohana Retsu didn't say anything, and decisively drew out his soul-cutting sword. Beilong's pupils shrank slightly. "My dear, Maojawa is particularly irritable today." Although he didn't understand why Ujihua was in a bad mood, Beilong also became serious, pulled out his soul-cutting sword and shouted. Fire draws the sword. When the dragon of courage and the fire sword meet with fire, the true red sword will pierce the evil, the fire sword fire. I saw a flash of red light, and the soul-cutting knife in Beilong's hand changed. A red sword with a silver blade wrapped around it appeared in Beilong's hand. A red flame-like guard appeared on the end of the sword, engraved with dragon and fire emblem. At the moment when the fire sword fiery appeared, Beilong's Reiatsu was also rising steadily, from just entering the 3rd level spiritual power to the early stage of the 3rd level spiritual power. Unohana Retsu looked at Beilong's seriousness and nodded with satisfaction. The braid that was originally tied in front of her body has now been untied and draped over her front and back. "Lang, try your best to please me with your sword. You are the only man who can please me." Unohana Retsu's face showed a bit of morbid excitement, and the gentle look before was completely gone. Although he has been taking lessons with Unohana Retsu for 10 years, Beilong still shook his head helplessly when he saw Unohana Retsu in this state, but he held the fire sword in his hand tighter. "Come on, lie. Only at this time will the title between the two become like this." That's right, the Kaido course is completely bullshit. The real teaching content of this class is fighting. Unohana Retsu suddenly took a step forward and was completely close to Beilong. Zanpakuto also circled around and completely pressed against Beilong's neck. For a moment, the coldness of Zanpakuto, the warmth of Unohana Retsu's body, and the killing intent that rushed straight into the soul, as if the smell of blood in a sea of blood were intertwined in Beilong's senses. Death, life, fighting, love. The real Unohana Retsu appeared in front of Beilong. If Beilong didn't know that he would never be hurt, he would not have the courage to provoke Unohana Retsu. The soul-cutting knife slashed across Beilong's neck, but it didn't leave any trace. The smile in Unohana Retsu's eyes grew stronger. This is only right. Only such an opponent is worthy of her using all her strength. Ding! Congratulations to host for gaining 10,000 Kendo experience points. There was no intention to check any system. Beilong decisively fought back. The flame sword in his hand slashes Unohana Retsu with fierce fire at the same time. Unlike Zaraki Kenpachi's fighting style, Unohana Retsu will not let himself suffer unnecessary damage. Beilong, who has already reached the captain level, already has the ability to cause damage to Unohana Retsu. When the dark sword on Unohana Retsu's left hand blocked Beilong's attack, and without stopping, his right hand stabbed Beilong's chest with his backhand. Still fighting without dodging, Beilong was hit in the chest by Unohana Retsu's sword, without any reaction at all, and rushed towards Unohana Retsu with 2 steps against her sword. This kind of fighting style is very familiar to Unohana Retsu. It is the same playing style as that beast-like child, but the difference is that Beilong is more pervert, and he will not be hurt. Beilong exerted force on his hand, and the fire spread the dark sword of Unohana, and slashed Unohana Retsu's chest again. Unohana Retsu had no intention of resisting forcefully this time. He moved his feet to distance himself from Beilong. But of course Beilong is hot on his heels. The flames wrapped around the fire burned several holes in Unohana Retsu's clothes, revealing the graceful figure under the clothes. But now Beilong has no intention of appreciating it at all. The same left-hand dark sword stabs Unohana Retsu. Unohana Retsu didn't care about the dark sword's attack at all. Beilong's dark sword was different from hers. It could only be regarded as a small means at best, and it didn't have such powerful attack power at all. Beilong himself knew it very well, so he let go of the dark sword and threw it directly at Unohana Retsu's head like a flying knife. The Unohana dark sword blocked Beilong's dark sword and bounced it away. At this time, Beilong accelerated his feet and landed directly in front of Unohana Retsu. He knows very well that only strong fire can pose a threat to Mao Zhihua. Fire cross slash. A cross-shaped sword light composed of flames slashed at Unohana Retsu, but unfortunately, Unohana Retsu did not panic at all, put away the dark sword in his hand, held the sword with both hands, and shouted, "Open!" One sword cut off Beilong's attack. "Lang, you've really become stronger, then." Unohana Retsu looked at Beilong with approval, although the current Unohana appearing in Soul Society might scare other Shinigami to death. But in Beilong's eyes, Unohana Retsu, who is now full of murderous aura, has a different kind of beauty. This is really in the physical sense, "Sister, kill me." Unohana Retsu's murderous voice sounded again. "Bankai all done." In an instant, with Unohana Retsu and Beilong as the center, countless blood seeped out crazily from all around, completely covering the two of them. Blood. Endless blood forms a world of blood. With Unohana Retsu's Bankai, the terrifying Reiatsu has created a sense of oppression even in the world of fantasy books. If it were in Soul Society, then everyone in Seraiti would be shocked by this Reiatsu. After Bankai, Unohana Retsu was directly promoted to a first-class spiritual power. And he is also the best among the first-class spiritual powers. He is indeed the first Kenpachi of Gotei 13. The strongest person next to Yamamoto Genryusai. Even Beilong felt the pressure coming from Unohana Retsu. But Beilong also had a bitter look on her face. Unohana Retsu didn't know how to use Bankai in her usual classes. It seemed that she was really angry today. However, Beilong was not completely incapable of resistance. With a shake of his hand, a big silver book appeared in his hand. Beilong said seriously, "Bankai. Super metal armor. Super gorgeous propeller. Super courageous knight. The flaming dragon pattern knight." The silver book merged into Beilong's body, and a silver cloak appeared behind Beilong. The Reiatsu in Beilong's body also skyrocketed, and it was directly promoted to the second-level spiritual power. Although the gap with Unohana Retsu is still huge, I can now move normally without being oppressed by Unohana Retsu Reiatsu. Nong, that's great. You have mastered Bankai. You are indeed a man who can please me. Unohana Retsu's voice revealed a hint of pleasure. Beilong became stronger and she became even happier. The soul-killing knife in her hand was still dripping with blood, and her eyes were slightly lowered. Kill them all and bring the enemies into a bloody space where they will not be disturbed by others. This is the best place for a duel. It will not cause any restraint or suppression effect on the enemy. On the contrary, being in the Juji space will continue to stimulate the inner killing instinct and enter the most ideal and pure fighting battle state, so that the weak can fight back more hysterically and the strong can enjoy the battle more happily. Lang, don't take chances. In this environment, I can't even keep my hand. This is also a small punishment for playing with the little wild cat yesterday. Beilong was stunned for a moment, and then he understood why Yunohana Retsu was so angry today. Obviously, she was jealous. Of course, Yunohana Retsu does not have the ability to tell everything. The blood that makes up the space actually has the ability to heal. However, in order to teach Beilong a small lesson, Yunohana Retsu will not tell Beilong about this. The ubiquitous blood seems to be inducing, glowing, and stimulating a certain instinct hidden in the hearts of living creatures, and its name is fighting. Even Beilong was affected by Jia Jin. The sword was covered with a silver light, and it was obvious that Beilong's soul-killing sword had also undergone some changes. Lie, my soul-killing sword is very simple. It doesn't have so many fancy abilities. Just like old man Shan, my sword only has endless destructive power. Let's have a pleasant fight. The two figures collided violently in the empty space. There are no skills, just instinctive fighting. After Yunohana Retsu liberated, Bankai all end, Yunohana Retsu's Reiatsu itself has increased to the point of shocking the entire Seraiti. Coupled with the unparalleled swordsmanship level, I am afraid that most of the so-called captain-level Shinigami are it's hard to survive the second blow in front of Yunohana Retsu. But Beilong is different. He is not afraid of Yunohana Retsu's sword at all. This makes Yunohana Retsu even more excited. Because of the powerful recovery ability provided by Yunohana Retsu, she ignores Beilong's soul-cutting sword and devotes herself to the attack. Whether it's Yunohana Retsu or Beilong, both of them have 6 smiles on their faces and are completely enjoying this battle. It is a pity that Beilong has no way to break through Yunohana Retsu's defense. It can only make her feel mentally happy and physically happy, which is a little bit worse. However, Yunohana Retsu believes that with Beilong's growth rate, she will also enjoy physical pleasure. Too strong. Yunohana Retsu's strength is not like those of the current Shinigami captains who focus on the development of Zanpakuto abilities. Most of their combat power relies on Bankai's strength, but their own strength. Mastered all the kendo schools of Soul Society and mastered them. In the realm of swordsmanship, Yunohana Retsu is undoubtedly at the undisputed top of Soul Society. This kind of power is completely unreasonable. This fight even lasted for a day. If Yunohana Retsu hadn't vented enough, it would have even lasted longer. If she had not met Beilong, then Yunohana Retsu would probably turn back into the beast that only knew killing after picking up the sword, but it is different now. In 10 years, Beilong let Yunohana Retsu vent it out, and her sword became its controllable, but it hasn't become dull. It's even become sharper after 10 years of fighting. Lang, didn't I look a little scary just now? Of course not, the lie just now was the most attractive girl. After the fight, the two people hugged each other and pressed tightly against each other. The soul-killing knives in their hands had long been thrown to the ground and lay there quietly. Different from the previous situation, Yunohana Retsu, who was out of the fighting state, returned to his gentle look again. The beautiful but indescribable curve even made Beilong unable to extricate himself. He praised the system. If it weren't for the system, how could he let Yunohana Retsu feel pleasure? Beilong finally experienced what it means that small branches bear fruit. At the same time, he was relieved that Yunohana Retsu, who had vented his anger, would not continue to pursue the matter of the pussycat dolls. Lang, remember to come to class the day after tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you in the 4th division. After leaving the fantasy book world, Yunohana Retsu warned him in a gentle tone. Outside the 4th division team building, Beilong just stepped out of the 4th team's door and was locked again by Yoruichi. Asshole, you still knew how to come out. Why did I think you were hacked to death by Yunohana-senpai? Yes, a guy like you should be hacked to death by Yunohana-senpai. Xiao Suo Ling, this matter has nothing to do with you. Lord Yoruichi. Beilong looked at the two bickering women, feeling helpless at first, and then his heart warmed up. It was obvious that even though Yoruichi and Soifan were unforgiving, they still cared about him. Others don't know it, but Yoruichi, the current head of the Shihuan family, doesn't know Yunohana Retsu's identity. As the only man who can come and go at will in the captain's room of the 4th division, Yoruichi is really worried about Beilong, especially this time it seems that this situation happened because of himself. Why be hacked to death? If I were hacked to death, wouldn't you and Xiao Xiaoling have to look out for each other? Beilong laughed. I won't stay a widow for you. Yoruichi, Your Excellency, it has nothing to do with me. Soi Fan's words were a bit guilty. After reacting, Yoruichi turned his head, looked at Soi Fan with a strange look, and then locked the arm on Beilong's head harder. Asshole, when did you deceive Xiao Shouling? No way. As your personal bodyguard, after you marry me, can she still run away? Beilong quickly explained that he really has never flirted with Soi Fan. After hearing Beilong's explanation, Yoruichi reluctantly let him pass and released the arm that locked Beilong's head. By the way, you were so worried about me, why didn't you go to the 4th Division to find me? Beilong and Yoruichi asked as they walked towards the 1st Division building. Ah ha 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 ha. Yoruichi laughed and did not answer the question. Is it possible that you are afraid that Captain Unohana will attack you? How is that possible? I'm Shihuin Yoruichi. That's true. After seeing that Beilong was okay, Yoruichi also took Soi Fan back to the 2nd team. After all, as the captain of the 2nd team, she still had a lot of things to be busy with. Beilong returned to the 1st team alone. Beilong, Lord Genryusai is waiting for you at the training ground. Chojiro Sasaki, who had just entered the 1st team gate and was waiting here, told him that Yamamoto Genryusai was looking for him. Beilong was stunned, nodded and said, I understand, I'll be there right away. Chojiro Sasaki nodded, and Shunpo went to deal with team affairs. Beilong didn't waste any time and went directly to the training ground. As soon as he entered the gate of the training ground, Beilong saw Yamamoto Genryusai kneeling alone in the middle of the training ground. None of the team members who usually train appeared here today. You came back alive, kid. Yamamoto Genryusai slowly opened his eyes in surprise. This surprise is not false. Although Reiatsu did not break out in the 4th team yesterday, Beilong did not show up all night. Yamamoto Genryusai really thought that he was stabbed by Unohana Retsu. If he hadn't sensed the two in the 4th team, personally, Reiatsu, Mr. Shan is planning to search the entire 4th division by himself. I said you don't have to be so excited. Isn't this something unacceptable? Beilong spread his hands speechlessly. Kid, how did you do that? I know Unohana Retsu's temper best, and you can actually subdue her. Yamamoto asked curiously. Beilong sat in front of Yamamoto Genryusai. It's not as scary as you say, she is very gentle. Yamamoto Motoryusai's eyes almost popped out after hearing Beilong's words. You don't care that the killing god who kills people all over the house at every turn and has hacked to death countless people is called gentle. Yamamoto Genryusai was a little curious. Could it be that love can really make such a big change in a person? Yamamoto Genryusai, who has been a bachelor all his life, cannot understand this situation at all. Ahem, that's the best, so I can rest assured. Yamamoto Genryusai breathed a sigh of relief. After all, even he could only suppress Unohana Retsu on the physical level, and he didn't dare to let her pull out her soul-zanting sword again. That unprecedented villain never expected that one day he would fall in love with a man. Don't think blindly, old man, this is our pure friendship. Yamamoto Genryusai glanced at Beilong in disbelief. Has he never eaten pork and seen a pig running? There were no violent Reiatsu fluctuations in the entire Soul Society yesterday. It was obvious that this disciple of his had persuaded Unohana Retsu through other means. If Beilong knew what Yamamoto Genryusai thought, he would definitely get angry, draw his sword and say angrily, Lao Dang, I have tolerated you for a long time. Okay, let's get down to business. Your spiritual power has reached the 3rd level. Yamamoto Genryusai became serious. Beilong nodded. He had no intention of hiding this kind of thing. With Yamamoto Genryusai's many years of experience, he could definitely tell that he had broken through to the captain level. Then, you also have the ability to become the captain of a division. Old man Shan, this matter is a little different from what you thought. Yamamoto Genryusai was stunned and asked, what's the difference? Although I have broken through to the 3rd level of spiritual power, I have not mastered Bankai. To be precise, my soul-cutting sword has not even fully mastered the ability of Shikai. Beilong said seriously. This is really not Beilong's nonsense. Now, after Beilong broke through to the 3rd level of spiritual power, he has only mastered 65% of Beilong's soul-killing sword, and there are still 2 important powers that he has not mastered. That is the ancient dragon and the elemental dragon. Beilong has not yet mastered these two big books. Although he gets along well with the ancient dragon children, the ancient dragon said that the current Beilong cannot withstand the power of the ancient dragon, let alone the elemental dragon. According to the estimation of the ancient dragon, he can barely master the power of the ancient dragon until he reaches the middle stage of the third level spiritual power, and the elemental dragon can only be mastered at the peak of the third level spiritual power. As for the 10 holy blades that symbolize Bankai, wait until he reaches the second level of spiritual power before you can touch them. Yamamoto Genryusai was obviously stunned for a moment, because even he himself had already mastered Bankai after entering the third-class spiritual power. Although he became a first-class spiritual power after using Bankai, he was indeed a third-class spiritual power. Master Bankai. The current first-class spiritual power is achieved through practice. How could this happen? Release your soul-cutting sword and let me take a look. Chapter 11. Beilong didn't leave any ink. He directly released the soul-slaying sword, and directly entered the 3-volume form of the Crimson Flying Dragon. After freeing the soul-slaying sword, a red cloak appeared behind Beilong. Yamamoto Genryusai took a closer look and found that indeed, the ability of this soul-cutting sword had not yet been fully explored in the Shikai stage. Teacher, this is not the final form of my soul-cutting sword Shikai, it can continue to change. With that, Beilong released the soul-cutting sword again, turning the flame sword Reihuo into the form of the fire dragon pattern knight, and the cloak behind it also changed. It turned white, and at the same time, Reiatsu also directly turned into a second-class spiritual power. This is still not the final form of my soul-cutting sword. According to my communication with the sword, my soul-cutting sword should have 2 changes. Beilong didn't hide it, and told the truth directly. After all, Yamamoto Yuanliusai is the person who knows his situation best. In the past 10 years, Yamamoto Genryusai has really taught him as a close disciple. Except for the title of captain, he has not been passed on to him, and other things that can be taught have been fully taught to him. Got it. As soon as he said this, Yamamoto Genryusai looked at Beilong as if he were a monster, and looked Beilong up and down carefully. I really didn't expect that your boy's talent would be so good. Such an amazing power is not your Bankai. Yamamoto Genryusai was also a little surprised. Beilong also pretended to be shy and scratched his head. In that case, don't tell anyone else about this. The Flame Dragon Mark Knight is your Bankai. Yamamoto Genryusai pondered for a moment and made the same judgment as Beilong. After all, the Dragon Knight's Reiatsu increase has reached 10 times the Bankai level. If Beilong didn't say it, others would have no idea that this wasn't even the final form of Beilong's Shikai. I understand, teacher. Beilong nodded. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded with satisfaction. In that case, you'd better not be the captain, but go to a team as the vice-captain first. Come to the first team's headroom tomorrow, I want the other captains to meet me disciple. The next day, outside the first team's headroom. Really, why did Mr. Sean ask us to come to the team's headroom so early in the morning? Hiroko Shinji, the current captain of the 5th Division, complained. Stop complaining, Hiroko, you are the captain now. A resolute voice sounded. Hiroko Shinji turned around and complained, it's Kensai, what I said is fine. That's right, the person coming is none other than the measurement unit of the Shinigami world. It won't take you too long. The founder, Mugaruma Kensai, one of the Bankai trio who must fight in every battle. To put it bluntly, even the current Beilong is stronger than 10 cars. But Mugaruma Kensai is not without his advantages. His advantage is that he is obedient. Except for the first time, kindness may be barely considered. I'm sorry, Captain Kensai, please don't pay attention to our captain's rude words. A gentle voice rang out. It was the big boss in the middle of Shinigami, Aizen Sosuke. Aizen, you are really unlucky to have a captain like Hiroko. Ha 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 ha, another voice sounded, and walking towards him was a hedgehog-headed man wearing the 7th Division's feather ori. It was the 7th Division. Team Captain Love Akawa came over with his vice-captain Katsubuki Basemon. Atsubuki Basemon is Katsubuki Sentaro's father. When Aizen heard Love Akawa's words, he still had a gentle smile on his face and argued a few words for Hiroko Shinji. The captains of other divisions and their vice-captains also came to the lounge of the team headroom one after another, and everyone started chatting. Hey, do you know why old man Shan came to see us today? Chun Shui, you are meaningless. Your disciple as the captain doesn't know about it. How can we know about it? Oh, you are talking about this. I really know that the captain wants to introduce his close disciples to us. As expected of Flash Goddess Yoruichi, the commander of the stealth maneuver. You all know this kind of news. Era Allah, Captain Yoruichi really knows a lot. While the captains and vice captains were chatting, Chojiro Sasaki walked in and said, "Okay, captains and vice captains, the captain has been waiting in the head room for a long time." As soon as these words came out, the captains and their adjutants entered the team leader's room and stood in the fixed meeting order, but everyone's eyes were on the silver-haired young man next to Yamamoto Genryusai. Yamamoto Genryusai saw everyone standing and said with a cane in his hand, "Now that everyone is here, today's meeting will begin." No one spoke. It was obvious that Yamamoto Genryusai had a strong sense of oppression on everyone. Yamamoto Genryusai looked around with satisfaction and said, "I have called you here today to introduce you to a powerful genius who is also one of my close disciples. He has received the Beilong of Genryu Fusokuden." As soon as these words came out, everyone present had different thoughts, but everyone had the same reaction. That's bad. How can this be a disciple? Isn't this the crown prince of our Gotei 13? Yamamoto Genryusai personally stood up for Beilong, which directly impressed other captains who didn't know Beilong yet. A closed disciple of Yamamoto Genryusai, Aizen Sosuke's glasses, hidden behind Hiriko Shinji, reflected a strong light, and no one knew what he was thinking. And people like Odoribashi Rojiro, Love Akawa, Hiriko Shinji, who didn't know Beilong at all, showed incomprehensible expressions to Beilong. On the contrary, it was the current captain of the 12th Division, Hikifuna Kiryu, who showed a friendly smile to Beilong. At this time, Hikifuna Kiryu had not been promoted to the 0 Division, but the promotion was confirmed, that is, in the past few days. A matter of 10 years. Yoruichi, Kuchiki Ginling and others who already knew it showed no expressions. Yamamoto Genryusai gave everyone a period of time to digest, and then used his cane again, and everyone stopped discussing. The second thing is that Beilong will join Gotei 13 as the vice captain. As for his strength, I think the title of Genryu's Yujia Chuan has already proved his strength well. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of all the vice captains present changed. They are really afraid that Beilong will parachute into their division. They don't dare to compete with Yamamoto Genryusai's apprentice for the position of deputy captain. However, they are not too worried. There are still some vacancies in the position of deputy captain in Gotei 13. The deputy captain of the first team is Chojiro Sasaki. Sentetsu is the mother of Tetsuziman Kiba, Yamada Shinosuke is the brother of Yamada Hanaduro in the 4th Division, Aizen in the 5th Division, and the 6th Division has been vacant since the death of Kuchiki Sojun. The 7th Division has been introduced, the 8th Division Yakinmaru Lisa Beilong's senior brother Kiraku Shunsui's secret, the 9th Division Kuna Mashiro, the 10th Division is not available yet, the 11th Division is not available yet, the 12th Division Sarutobi Hiyori, the 13th Division is currently unavailable. So Beilong really doesn't have to compete for these vice-captain positions. Beilong also shook his head helplessly. The Gotei 13 at this stage should be the weakest Gotei 13, not to mention the deputy captain level, and there are not all of them. The captain level is even more heavyweight. Love Akawa, Odoribashi Rojiro, and Mugaruma Kensai are all only third-class spiritual powers. Hiriko Shinji is slightly stronger, but he is only in the middle of the third-level spiritual power, far from the second-level spiritual power. Yoruichi managed to touch the second-class spirit power, the whole Gotei 13, the whole 2 cats and 3 kittens, they were too weak to look like. Just when everyone was talking about it, as an old subordinate of Yamamoto Genryusai, Kuchiki Ginling stood up first and said, "Our 6th Division team is currently lacking a deputy captain. Little Beilong can come to our 6th Division team. I believe that Kid Byakuya will very happy. Ahem, Senior Yinling, let's ask junior brother Beilong to come to our 13th Division. My vice captain has been vacant for many years." Jashiro Yukitaki also said, "It's better to let Beilong join my 2nd Division. He's more familiar with me and we can work together better." Of course Yoruichi hopes that Beilong will join her division so that she can be with Beilong every day. This kind of robbing activity made Hiriko Shinji and others stunned. They didn't expect Beilong to be so popular. Okay, don't argue. I have already arranged the division that is most suitable for him. That is the 4th division. Yamamoto made the final decision directly. What? The 4th team? Doesn't the 4th team have a vice captain? Yoruichi was stunned for a moment and said quickly. Ara-ala, Vice Captain Yamada was promoted yesterday and went to the Herbal Medicine Academy as the vice president. Our Division 4 team didn't have a vice captain yesterday. Unohana Retsu, who had not spoken a word, came up and gave Yoruichi a violent blow, hit. But the 4th team is a treatment team. Does Beilong have strong healing ability? Yoruichi said reluctantly. When the other captains saw Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu facing each other, they all shivered. Although Unohana Retsu was gentle to everyone, no matter which captain faced Unohana Retsu, they felt a chill on the back of their necks. It's like being threatened by something. Of course Beilong has excellent healing abilities. His Kaido was taught by me myself. Captain Yoruichi, do you want to give it a try? Unohana Retsu warned Yoruichi in a gentle voice. Yoruichi was unwilling to say anything more, but Yamamoto Genryusai said with a cane, okay, stop arguing, this matter has been settled. Beilong, please introduce yourself. Yoruichi sighed unwillingly. Beilong also smiled at Yoruichi and stood up and said, hello, captains and vice captains. My name is Beilong. I am very happy to become colleagues with you. If you need anything, you can go to the 4th team. I'm asking for help. After saying that, Beilong showed a sunny smile. Aizen Sosuke behind Hiriko Shinji frowned slightly. He always felt that this Beilong with a sunny smile exuded the same aura as him. However, after Beilong finished speaking, Yoruichi, who was the admirer, also took the lead in applauding. Aizen Sosuke just shook his head slightly, no longer thinking about what just happened, and also applauded with a gentle smile. The meeting ended quickly. After the meeting, the captains and deputy captains who did not know Beilong had no intention of contacting Beilong. After all, there is a long way to go. Gotei 13 is a high-risk profession. If Beilong lives long enough, he will naturally become familiar with them. Get up. Yoruichi carelessly hugged Beilong's arm and said, okay, you will become the vice captain immediately. You have to treat me to a drink tonight. That's right, junior brother, it's really your turn to treat me to a drink this time. Hieraku Shunsui also had the same attitude. Congratulations, junior brother. If there is anything you don't understand, just go to Division 13 and ask me. Jashiro Yukitaki, on the other hand, was much more serious. Beilong smiled and said, no problem, I won't be polite to my senior brothers if necessary. It's so fast. Fortunately, it was only yesterday that I gave my junior brother an early graduation exam. In the blink of an eye, junior brother, you can also serve as the vice captain. Hieraku Shunsui also sighed. Who would have thought that the student of Spiritual Arts Academy would become Yamamoto? Where are the closed disciples of Yuan Lujai? Allah, everyone is here. Unohana Retsu, who had just finished talking to Yamamoto Genryusai, also came over. Seeing Unohana Retsu, Hieraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki became more serious and greeted Unohana Retsu politely. Of course Yoruichi is like this too. Captain Yoruichi, you should let go of my vice captain, otherwise others will see it and rumors will spread. Unohana Retsu pointed the finger directly at Yoruichi. Yoruichi wanted to say something, but when he saw Unohana Retsu's gentle smile, he reluctantly let go of Beilong and said unhappily, old woman. Unohana Retsu saw Yoruichi hugging Beilong's arm and was also unhappy, little wild cat. Hieraku Shunsui, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, realized that something was wrong. After giving Beilong an expression of admiration, he pulled Jashiro Yukitaki, who was still confused, to say hello and left. Junior brother, let's meet in the pub tonight. No problem, senior brother. Seeing the two people leaving knowingly, Unohana Retsu nodded with satisfaction, turned to look at Yoruichi and said, is there nothing going on in Captain Yoruichi's team? Yoruichi felt unhappy, but he didn't dare to argue with Unohana Retsu. He snorted and left Shunpo directly. HMPH, the little wild cat still wants to fight with me. Unohana Retsu looked like a mature woman. Beilong shook his head helplessly, walked up to Unohana Retsu and said, let's go, Retsu, let's go back to the 4th division. Outside, Call the captain. Okay, lie. Division 4. Unohana Retsu summoned all the members of Division 4 and announced it in public. The person next to me is Beilong, the new vice captain of the 4th Division. At the same time, he is also a close disciple of Captain Yamamoto. If you need anything in the future, when I am not around, you can ask Vice Captain Beilong. Beilong also stood up and introduced himself, completely following the Aizen approach. Most of the members of the 4th team are fans of Unohana Retsu, and they are all mild-mannered, so no one stood up and said anything. Unohana Retsu nodded with satisfaction and said to the seat officer, Kotetsu Sanchi, Vice Captain Beilong has just come to our 4th Division. As a senior, you must assist him well. Kotetsu Azane is a tall girl, only slightly shorter than Beilong, but has a very gentle personality. After hearing Unohana Retsu's name, she quickly said, I understand, Captain Unohana, I will assist Deputy Beilong well. Captains. Then I'll trouble Huche Sanchi. Beilong also smiled gently. It's okay, this is what I should do. Although he is tall, his personality is really like a little rabbit. Here Kotetsu Azane's hair is silver, which is the color in the 98 color comics. Personally, I feel that Kotetsu Azane with silver hair is more beautiful than the one with purple hair. However, this Kotetsu Sanchi, although he has a weak temperament, his Soul Xanding sword is unexpectedly a direct attack Soul Xanding sword. In other words, this girl is actually gentle on the outside but strong on the inside. Vice Captain Beilong, this is your Vice Captain's room. If you need anything, just tell me. Kotetsu Azane led Beilong to the room next to Captain Unohana Retsu's room and opened the door of the next room with a smile. You don't have to be so polite, Huche Sanchi, just call me Beilong in private. I don't have that many rules. Beilong said equally gently. If Yoruichi and Unohana see this, they will definitely say that Beilong is teasing another girl again, what a conscience. Beilong really doesn't have that idea. Ah, okay, but I'd better call you Vice Captain. Kotetsu Azane was startled, but did not do what Beilong said. Although Kotetsu Azane's fighting ability is not very good, Kaido and Unohana Retsu are in the same league. Beilong certainly knows how important a good nanny is, so of course it is better to have such a talent himself. If you want to rule the entire Soul Society, talents are of course essential. Only those who grasp the future can successfully control Soul Society in their own hands. After settling in his room, Beilong decisively gave up on handling team affairs and went directly to the captain's room where Unohana Retsu was. Nothing was more important than spending time with his wife. Just like when we first saw her, Unohana Retsu was sitting on her knees in the captain's room, looking like Yamato Nadeshiko. If Beilong hadn't seen the real Unohana Retsu, he would have thought that this appearance was her true nature. But it's hard to say. After all, the flower of Uzumaki has been what it is now for 1,000 years, and the fake ones have become real. Lang, you're here. Lie, I'm here. You shouldn't have come. I'm still here. Beilong himself wanted to complain, what the hell is this strong ancient dragon style? However, Beilong didn't continue to stand there chatting with Unohana Retsu. He walked over directly and lay on Unohana Retsu's lap. If other people in Soul Society saw this, they would probably be scared to death on the spot. Anyone who dares to have thoughts about Unohana Retsu would have grass on their graves now 1 foot tall. But it was obvious that the two of them were used to this way of getting along. Unohana Retsu rubbed Beilong's head skillfully, and while rubbing it, he said, Yongyan is a very good child. Although his fighting ability is very poor, his talent in Kaido is not as good as mine. It's not much different, it's very suitable to assist you in handling team affairs. Originally, the old man asked me to come to the 4th division, which meant I was gold-plated. I'll probably be transferred to another division soon. Beilong didn't care about this. The captain told me that you will probably have to work in the 4th division for decades, but this may not be a bad thing for you. Unohana Retsu said. Although Unohana Retsu can only cut people when she is on top, but under normal circumstances, Unohana Retsu's double quotient is very terrifying. She is just too lazy to use it. After all, using her brain is not as satisfying as cutting it off with a sword. This is also the reason why Beilong is the first to conquer Unohana Retsu. For others, it is completely impossible to conquer Unohana Retsu, but for Beilong, this may be the easiest thing. As long as it pleases Unohana Retsu, that's enough. Evening, Rukongai. Beilong helplessly looked at the unscrupulous senior brother next to him and complained, Senior brother Kyoryu, we can just drink some wine and serai tea. If we have to come to Rukongai, do you want to see if the old man's blade is not sharp? Quote. Don't worry about these details. How can the tavern in Seraiti be compared with the one in Rukongai? Hieraku Shunsui hugged Beilong's neck and laughed. Jashiro Yukitaki had a blank expression on his face. As an old brother, he had to give him the whole job. Of course Unohana Retsu did not come to this party. After all, Unohana Retsu is theoretically the same generation as Yamamoto Genryusai, and everyone present knows about this person's past affairs. It can be said that except Beilong, anyone who saw this, even Unohana Retsu, is scared. Just like this one. Okay, Hieraku Captain, tell us where to go for a drink tonight. As soon as Yoruichi appeared, he snatched Beilong back from Hieraku Shunsui's hand. Seeing that Unohana Retsu was not there, Yoruichi was very courageous. The big one directly hugged Beilong's arm. She didn't look like the captain of the second division at all, but looked like Beilong's little wife. Yoruichi-sama, how could you do this? You, let go of Yoruichi-sama. Soi Fan said emotionally. Beilong was speechless for a while. Xiao Xiaoling couldn't be jealous. Hieraku Shunsui looked at Beilong with great envy. Although this junior fellow apprentice is young, his popularity with women is really enviable. Even women like Unohana Senpai and Shihuin Yoruichi fell in love with him at the same time. Hieraku Shunsui really wants to become Beilong's disciple. Let's ask him how he does it. East Rukongai, District 62, flowers withered. Beilong looked at the tavern in front of him and said speechlessly, Brother, are you sure this place is better than Seraiti? Looking at the shabby tavern in front of him that was not open at all, Beilong was speechless. It took him an hour to get here from Seraiti. If it weren't for the fact that several of the people present were experts at or above the vice captain level, it might have taken much longer. Definitely not against Soi Fan. Haha, yes, it's right here. Hieraku Shunsui smiled, skillfully stepped forward to open the door of the tavern, and let a few people into the underground of the tavern. Like the underground of Urahara Kazuki, the underground of the tavern is a huge open place with a lot of wine piled in the corner. Beilong was stunned. He didn't expect that Hieraku Shunsui had set up a secret base just like Yoruichi and the others. Jashiro Yukitaki also said with a nostalgic look, Everyone, come with me. He led a few people to the only building underground, a small pavilion. I didn't expect that the two senior brothers actually have a secret base outside Seraiti. Beilong sat down and sighed. Hieraku Shunsui distributed the wine he had collected to everyone, and laughed and said, This happened when we were training under Master Genryusai. Sometimes when we were tired from training, Jashiro and I would come over to relax. It was kind of like that. This is our secret base. Hieraku Shunsui lowered his guard for the first time in a long time and looked at everything here with great nostalgia. The people present are indeed his own people, including his teacher's close disciples, his junior brother's fiancé and his fiancé's dowry. Hieraku Shunsui is not afraid that what is said here will spread. Jashiro Yukitaki felt the same as Hieraku Shunsui. He picked up a glass of wine and drank it slowly. Although Mimi Haki replaced Jashiro Yukitaki's internal organs, it did not completely cure Jashiro Yukitaki. In addition, Jashiro Yukitaki's right hand against the Soul King there is innate rejection and the right hand of the Soul King is not fused, which is why Jashiro is often weak. Except for Soi Fan who was standing next to Yoruichi and didn't drink, Beilong and the four of them had a good time. However, after 3 rounds of wine and 5 tastes of food, it was time to get down to business. Hieraku Shunsui put down the bowl in his hand. The bamboo hat and Captain Haori had already been hanging aside. Junior brother, do you want to inherit your teacher's Gote 13? As soon as these words came out, everyone stopped what they were doing. Hieraku, you. Before Jashiro Yukitaki could finish speaking, Hieraku Shunsui reached out to stop him. Yoruichi frowned slightly, wondering what Hieraku Shunsui meant. Soi Fan also noticed that something was wrong, and his hand had already touched his soul-cutting sword. However, Beilong didn't seem to care about Hieraku Shunsui's words. After calmly taking a sip of the wine in the bowl, he said, "Yes, I do want to serve as the captain of Gotei 13. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere on the court became more serious. Beilong did not shy away from anything and directly expressed his thoughts. Kyoraku Shunsui just looked at Beilong and suddenly burst into laughter. It was as if some weight had been lifted off his body, and he relaxed and leaned against the pillar of the pavilion behind him. Jashiro Yukitaki sighed helplessly and said, "Hey, you, my junior brother has just become a disciple not long ago, why do you have to put this burden on him?" "That's just right, I don't want to be the captain. If it weren't for your body not supporting Jashiro, you would be the best candidate for the captain." Kyoraku Shunsui said what was in his heart directly. Yoruichi and Soifan breathed a sigh of relief, but they didn't expect that tonight would be a confession round. "Honestly, if it weren't for old man Shan and my two incompetent disciples, I wouldn't be the candidate for the captain. Now that I have a junior brother, it couldn't be better." Kyoraku Shunsui is indeed like this thought. What the captain of Gotei 13 needs is not a super brain, but the power to not be afraid of anything. Apparently, Kyoraku Shunsui has no such power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have realized that he couldn't control Unohana Retsu and just sent her away. It's okay to let Kyoraku Shunsui make suggestions, but he is really not suitable for the job of captain. If the old man in the original novel, Nakayama, had no better choice, Kyoraku Shunsui would never have been the captain. There is really no other way. The only one left in the older generation is Unohana Retsu. We can't let her be the captain. If Jashiro Yukitaki is in good health, he would be the best choice. Unfortunately, there is no if. After hearing Beilong's wish, Kyoraku Shunsui decisively chose to support Beilong. "Junior brother, since you have this idea, we as senior brothers will definitely support it. From now on, Jashiro and I will be your biggest helpers in Gotei 13. Kyoraku Shunsui didn't play tricks and just said it to death. And the 5 nobles, the head of the Shihuan family, one of the 4 nobles, is still here to bear witness. This matter was killed on the spot. Beilong was stunned. Good guy, a strong feeling of being tricked came to his heart. He was tricked by these 2 fools, Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki. Seeing Beilong's stunned expression, Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki also laughed unscrupulously, while Yoruichi and Soifan were relieved. After all, Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki are veteran captains, and their qualifications are second only to Unohana Retsu and Yamamoto Genryusai. If they really had other ideas today, Yoruichi and Beilong couldn't tell, and Soifan would definitely be dead. Since the 2 senior brothers have said so, I won't hide it anymore. I really need the help of the 2 senior brothers. Beilong was not polite and asked for help directly. Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki also became serious. "Brother Jashiro, I need you to fully master Mimihaki's power." Beilong looked directly at Jashiro Yukitaki and said without any politeness. Jashiro Yukitaki frowned slightly. "Junior brother, Master Mimihaki saved me. Without it, I would have died long ago. Brother, don't be impatient. Listen to my explanation. Mastering Mimihaki's power does not mean destroying Mimihaki. I think both senior brothers know what Mimihaki is." Beilong started. The mouth escapes. Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki looked at each other, but they didn't expect Beilong to know so many things. Yoruichi also looked thoughtful, but Soifan couldn't understand what Beilong and the others were talking about. I have to say, sometimes, ignorance is bliss. Both senior brothers, apart from Mimihaki, actually have other parts in this world. Moreover, these things are scattered in different places and forces, and are completely controlled. Beilong's words were so shocking that Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki stood up in fright. 2 senior brothers, calm down. The old man knows about this. In fact, the old man also hopes that senior brother Jashiro can master Mimihaki's power, but he can't say it openly. After all, the identities are different. Beilong's words made Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitaki calm down and sit down again. But at the same time, the 2 of them also complained to Yamamoto Genryusai in their hearts, "We are all your disciples. How come Beilong knows so many things? The close disciples plus the ones who are not allowed to work are really different from us." Kyoraku Shunsui is even a little lucky. If he doesn't voluntarily give up his status as the successor of the captain, Given the old man's preference for Beilong, will the old man have to bring Ryujin Jakka to him to talk? Brother Jashiro, only this power can deal with this power. And you have sensed it over the years, right? Mimi Haki actually has no consciousness of his own. As long as you fully integrate it, you will be Mimi Haki. On the contrary, it is a guarantee for Mimihaji to continue to exist. Jashiro Yukitake nodded, a little confused, but one thing Jashiro Yukitake was very sure of, that is, Mimi Haki's power was indeed something only Mimi Haki could handle. Jashiro Yukitake thought of this and stopped worrying about anything. He sighed and said, I know, junior brother, I will announce that I am sick when I go back. It may take decades to recover from my illness. Beilong was overjoyed. It was convenient to talk to smart people. He then turned to look at Kiraku Shunsui and continued, as for senior brother Chun Shui, we also have important tasks to give to senior brother. Of course, senior brother, don't forget to continue working hard to make yourself better. Stronger. Kiraku Shunsui nodded, he finally understood. Compared with Beilong, a close disciple and the little prince of Gote 13, he and Jashiro Yukitake are simply stepmothers and they can only be obedient. When the matter was settled, Beilong felt a big stone fall in his heart. After all, his senior brother was the only candidate who could compete with him for this position. That is to say, old man Shan was decisive and directly stood up for himself. In addition, his senior brother was indeed right. I am not interested in this position, otherwise, things would be really difficult to talk about. Throughout the whole process, Yoruichi and Soifan didn't say a word. Yoruichi was like a little wife, sitting obediently next to Beilong. He was not surprised at all by Beilong and Kiraku Shunsui's words, but it was obvious that Yoruichi's behavior was completely it represents the attitude of the Shihuan family. Shihuan Seni is not a fool. How come it is such a coincidence that he takes Yoruichi to become a disciple in Beilong and then goes to the first team to retire? Of course, these calculations have nothing to do with Yoruichi. Originally, Shihuan Seni just wanted care and status, but he didn't expect Beilong to take care of his granddaughter in bed. Beilong was quite happy with this meal. After having a full meal and discussing the follow-up matters, they separated and prepared to go back to Seraiti. A possible struggle was nipped in the bud before it could arise. Beilong was also contentedly holding Yoruichi's hand and walking on Rukongai. At this time, a chaotic sound came from not far away. You two brats, catch them. Don't let them get away. I saw a few samurai carrying swords chasing two little ghosts. The two little ghosts were a boy and a girl. One had short lavender hair and was wearing patched black clothes. The girl he was pulling was wearing a yellow-colored dress. The white clothes were also patched, and the two of them were running towards the Beilong trio in a panic, holding bread like pasta. Beilong was stunned for a moment. He was very familiar with these two people, and they were also the most difficult to reconcile among Shinigami, Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku. Beilong suddenly realized, yes, the flower dry area of East number 62 is exactly the block where Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku are located in the official novel. Moreover, according to the current timeline, it is obvious that Aizen Sosuke has not yet attacked Matsumoto Rengoku. If this is the case, then Beilong will take action first. The current Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku have not had any future experiences and are still two immature children. Rengoku, go this way. Ichimaru Jin saw the Beilong trio, recognized the Shinigami kimonos on them, and decisively chose another direction. After all, if you are caught by a samurai, you will get a beating at most. If you collide with a Shinigami, you will really die without knowing how. But Beilong smiled slightly. He had already encountered it, and he could still let you two little babies run away. A Shunpo reached out and picked up the two children. Although both children struggled violently, they were mercilessly suppressed by Beilong. Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku felt despair in their hearts. They heard that some Shinigami like young children. Didn't they encounter such a pervert? When the chasing warriors saw Beilong and the others, they didn't dare to get close. After all, not everyone is as brave as Zaraki Kenpachi. Beilong was speechless for a while. He thought he could show off his strength and make the two little tigers bow their heads in awe. As a result, now I can no longer show my holiness in front of others. Yoruichi saw that Beilong wanted to protect the two children, so he directly said a few words to Soifan. Soi Fan went over to negotiate with these samurai. The leader took the hundreds of rings, the currency of Shinigami that Soi Fan rewarded. Left happily. However, seeing the samurai leave, Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku did not feel relieved. Instead, the two children felt that they had just stepped out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's den again. Sir Shinigami, just let Rengoku go and come to me if you have any problems. Although he is young, Ichimaru Jin already considers Matsumoto Rengoku to be the most important person. No, Silver, I will never separate from you. Matsumoto Rengoku said the same. The two little ones parted ways between life and death in this performance. Beilong was speechless for a while, and Yoruichi burst into laughter without restraint. Okay, I saved you, but you two didn't say thank you. Instead, you regarded me as a bad person. Do I look like a bad person? Beilong said with a dark look on his face. Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku, who were put down by Beilong, looked at each other awkwardly. Yes, it seemed that they were really overthinking it. What do you need, sir? After the embarrassment just now, Ichimaru Jin asked like a little adult. Beilong looked at Ichimaru Jin, who was obviously still very defensive about him, and was speechless, but fortunately his good wife Yoruichi came on the stage, walked up to the two children and said, "Do you know why you are hungry?" Where are the two children exposed to these things now? They just feel that they are different from other children. Other children only need to drink water to survive, but they will be hungry and need to eat. So the two children shook their heads in confusion. Matsumoto Rengoku handed Yoruichi the pasta that he was holding tightly in his arms just now, and said softly, "Sister, are you hungry?" Yoruichi rubbed Matsumoto Rengoku's little head and said with a smile, "Of course not, I'll just leave this for you to eat." Matsumoto Rengoku nodded and hugged the noodles tightly again, making Yoruichi sigh, and Soi Fan beside him couldn't stand it. Although Soi Fan's family can be considered a minor noble, her family is in a lot of poverty, and Soi Fan is kind enough, so she can barely sympathize with her. "Sister, I tell you, you are different from other people. You have spiritual power in your body. If you stay with someone without spiritual power for a long time, the person without spiritual power will die." Yoruichi also I did some popular science for the two children. The two children also suddenly realized, and then they understood why no one wanted to play with them. People with psychic powers would unconsciously emit Reiatsu to oppress the surrounding people. Jung is the universal summoning soul. Kuchiki Heijun, Rukia Kuchiki and Aburai Renji's friends all died like this. Ichimaru Jin somewhat understood, turned to look at Beilong and said, "Sir, what's the reason for stopping us?" Beilong nodded approvingly. As expected of Ichimaru Jin, he immediately grasped the key point. "I just want to ask you if you want to become my teacher." Beilong didn't hide it and spoke directly. Of course, even if these two children don't want to become their teacher, he will definitely take them away. They are so outstanding. Of course, you should keep your talents around yourself to cultivate them. But before he finished speaking, Ichimaru Jin immediately knelt on the ground and saluted and said, "Master, please bow to Ichimaru Jin." After saying that, he kowtowed directly, making Beilong stunned. "Good guy, I seem to have seen this scene before. Pass." Matsumoto Rengoku asked timidly, "Can we eat enough for every meal after becoming a disciple?" After hearing what Matsumoto Rengoku said, Beilong was stunned for a moment and said helplessly, "Of course." When Matsumoto Rengoku heard this, his eyes lit up and he also became a disciple. Beilong also smiled from ear to ear and helped the two children up. He said with satisfaction, "In that case, then you two can come back to Seraiti with me, right? You two have no other relatives, right?" "No, it's just the two of us living together." Hearing this, Yoruichi also felt maternal, reaching out to hold the two children in his arms. Beilong and Yoruichi each held the two children, and told them their names and identities on the way. "Master, what is a vice captain? Can you eat it?" Matsumoto Rengoku's childish voice sounded. "Idiot Rengoku, the vice captain is your identity." Although Ichimaru Jin still didn't quite understand, he said like a little adult. The two children made Beilong and Yoruichi very happy along the way, and everyone returned to Seraiti without incident. Division 4, Captain's Room. Katetsu Azane ran in a panic, and Unohana Retsu, who was still arranging flowers in the captain's room, said without raising his head, "Yugon, don't be so anxious. Can something big happen? Sorry, Captain Unohana, I'm rude, but come and take a look. Vice Captain Beilong and Captain Yoruichi are here holding 2 children. What? Mao Zhawa was shocked, and with a strong force on her hand, the flower in her hand was cut off by her. Before Katetsu Azane could say anything more, Unohana Retsu had already disappeared into the captain's room. The deputy captain's room is also where Beilong usually lives. Gote 13's treatment of the captain and vice captain is quite good. Unohana Retsu lives alone in a huge house, which is comparable to Prince Kung's mansion. Beilong lives in a very small place, right next to Unohana Retsu's house, and the 2 are neighbors. At this time, Beilong and Yoruichi were arranging a place for the 2 children to live together. This time, the place was bigger, and the 2 children no longer had to sleep together. Vice Captain Beilong, are you at home? Unohana Retsu's words showed no emotion or anger, but they were already called by name and job title. It was obvious that Unohana Retsu was not in a very beautiful mood. Beilong saw the confused looks on the 2 children's faces and said with a smile, "Wait a minute, the captain of our squad is here." After saying that, he went out to meet Unohana Retsu. As soon as Unohana Retsu entered Beilong's house, he regretted it. He had been reckless and came over without hearing all the information. Seeing Unohana Retsu's tangled expression, Beilong felt confident. He stepped forward and took Unohana Retsu's hand and said, "Lai, it's so late, why are you here?" Seeing Beilong's actions and Beilong's unfazed expression, Unohana Retsu also felt confident and said angrily, "If I hadn't come, I wouldn't have known you were back with 2 children." Beilong guessed that this was the case and said with a smile, "Haha, these are the 2 young apprentices I just accepted today. Come on, Lai, I will take you to meet them." After saying that, he took Unohana Retsu's hand and walked towards the house. Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku were dumbfounded when they saw Beilong dragging in a woman as gentle and beautiful as Yamato Nadeshiko. After all, although they were young, they had lived in Rukongai for so many years and had seen couples before. "Good guy, this master of ours actually has 2 wives. He is truly a role model for our generation." Of course, this is what Ichimaru Jin thinks. Matsumoto Rengoku has been bought by Yoruichi. In Yoruichi's description, this is her Yoruichi's love rival. "Come here, Silver, Rengoku, come and see Captain Unohana." Beilong also smiled and waved his hand, asking the 2 children to say hello. Ichimaru Jin's mind was spinning so fast. He knelt down on the spot and saluted, "Disciple Ichimaru Jin, I have met Mrs. Unohana." As soon as these words came out, Beilong was shocked. "Okay, kid, the road is now widened for you." When Unohana Retsu heard Ichimaru Jin's name, the smile on his face almost overflowed. He directly stepped forward to pull Ichimaru Jin up and said with satisfaction, "What a good boy." Matsumoto Rengoku didn't expect Ichimaru Jin to do such a trick, and he was really a little stunned. However, the little girl reacted quickly, and also saluted and called her master's wife. Her 2 little mouths were as if they were covered with honey, making Unohana Retsu very happy. Yoruichi was speechless. In her heart, she was the main wife. Of course, it is impossible for the 2 little ones to offend Yoruichi. Yoruichi, the captain of the second team, also lost himself in the Yoruichi master, one after another. Unohana Retsu is also rare and does not show any signs of estrangement from Yoruichi, which is regarded as acquiescence in the relationship between Yoruichi and Beilong. Beilong also has to give a thumbs up to his 2 apprentices. They are worthy of being his apprentices. They easily solved a big problem for his master. That night, Unohana Retsu and Yoruichi also rarely went back to their homes and stayed at Beilong's house for one night. The next day, the 2 little ones, who had already washed themselves up and put on clean clothes, were also officially apprenticed. Beilong was in the middle, and sitting on the left and right were Unohana Retsu and Yoruichi. The 2 little ones were apprenticed in a well-behaved manner. It was considered that Beilong had officially accepted these 2 little apprentice. Then Beilong and the other 3 also checked the spiritual power levels of the 2 little beasts. Although all 3 of them could sense the huge spiritual power of the 2 little beasts, their estimates were always inaccurate. Professional equipment was still needed. Okay. After all, Beilong still had some respect in the Spiritual Arts Academy. Under the glaring expression of the vice principal, Beilong borrowed the instrument used by the Spiritual Arts Academy to test the spiritual power level at the beginning of the school year. The test results of the two little ones really surprised Beilong and the others. Ichimaru Jin, Reiwei 6th class. Matsumoto Rengaku, Reiwei 5th class. Beilong didn't expect that Matsumoto Rengaku's spiritual power was even higher than Ichimaru Jin. But after thinking about it, it seems right. Matsumoto Rengaku does have the fingertips of the Soul King. It is normal for Reiatsu to be taller than Ichimaru Jin. After all, this person can still reach the 4th level of spiritual power after losing part of his soul. Bankai can't do it at all. Because the soul is incomplete, otherwise, this person would not be worse than Shihuin Yoruichi. Beilong is mentally prepared for Ichimaru Jin's strength. The 6th level spiritual power is actually a genius among geniuses. Let's put it this way. Among the students who did not enter the Spiritual Arts Academy in the original work, the only one who is clearly a 6th level spiritual power is Shiba. Kyan is called a genius by the Shiba family. To be able to call the 5 great nobles a genius, of course it couldn't be worse. Jashiro Yukitake even personally invited Shiba Kyan to be his vice-captain. Even a genius like Hitsugaya Toshiro only held 3 positions after entering Gotei 13. Jashiro Yukitake trained Shiba Kyan as his successor. If Shiba Kyan doesn't die, when the plot begins, his strength will not be worse than Xiaobai. This completely shows how outrageous Ichimaru Jin's talent is. After all, he is the person Aizen likes, so how could it be any worse? However, the two little ones do not know how scary their spiritual power level is. To put it bluntly, these two children have no such awareness at all. Beilong was very happy and said with a smile, "Yin, Rengaku, you two come with me. I will take you to meet your master. He will be very happy to see you." Master? Who is master? Master is of course the master's master. Beilong held a child in one hand and went directly to the first team. Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu went back to handle their respective team affairs. The captain didn't have that much time. As for Soifan, Yoruichi sent her back to the 2nd division to work last night. She is an old wage earner. First team. Hello, Master Beilong. Who are these two children? Oh, no more chatting about the apprentice I have accepted. I'm going to find old man Shan first. For the old subordinates of Yamamoto Genryusai, Beilong is their next little master, so these old people have always called Beilong Master Beilong. Even Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitake did not get such a title. This is the difference between heirs and non-heirs. Yamamoto Genryusai also heard the information brought by Chojiro Sasaki. You mean, the fool Beilong came here with 2 children? Or did he bring them back from Rukongai? After hearing Chojiro Sasaki's report, Yamamoto Genryusai felt a vein popping up on his forehead. Obviously, old man Shan thought Beilong had made a mistake. Beilong carried 2 little guys with smiles on their faces and came to the door of Yamamoto Yuanlujai. He opened the door of Yamamoto Yuanlujai with his feet and said happily, "Old man Shan, I'm here to see you." "Traitor, give it to me." Just as he was shouting, Yamamoto saw the 2 children in Beilong's hands, and his furious face instantly turned into a kind one. Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengaku were both stunned. How could their master change his face? Come on, let grandpa take a look." Yamamoto Genryusai instantly transformed into a kind grandpa. After all, in his view, Beilong is his close disciple. When he has no children, Kyoraku Shunsui, Beilong and other direct disciples are no different from their own children. Then Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengaku are naturally his grandchildren. If you want to ask Yamamoto Genryusai if he has such a face, all I can say is, don't forget that Mr. Yama passed the sweet potato test with Ryujin Jakka, don't think of him as too stubborn. Ryujin Jakka. You are amazing, you are noble, I should die outside. Beilong didn't know why his master was crazy, so he put the 2 children on the ground and said, "Let's go meet your master." Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengaku looked at Yamamoto Genryusai with a kind face with some fear. Although Yamamoto Genryusai had a smile on his face, the bodies of the 2 children could sense that Yamamoto Genryusai contained a huge amount of reiatsu. The 2 little ones turned to look at Beilong. Beilong smiled and said, "It's okay. Come on over." Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku nodded, and the two little ones ran over and hugged Yamamoto Genryusai's hand and shouted, "Master! Hey, my dear grandchildren!" Yamamoto Motorianagi could hardly keep his eyes open. As the old man reaches his age, he just likes to have his grandchildren around him. But as soon as he turned his head, Yamamoto Genryusai's expression changed and he said angrily, "You, get over here and explain to me, whose girl did you bully?" Feeling the majestic spiritual power of Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku, Yamamoto Genryusai became even more convinced that his apprentice must have caused trouble to some girl. Don't blame Yamamoto Genryusai for thinking nonsense. The main reason is that his little apprentice is good at everything, but he does have problems with relationships. Unlike Kyoraku Shunsui is just a little playful at best, and is not actually pestered by any woman. Although Beilong doesn't play hard, the women he provokes are all first-class women. Not to mention anything else, Hana Retsu and Shihuin Yoruichi, these two are already quite heavyweights. It is no exaggeration to say that if Beilong hadn't been powerful and a close disciple of Yamamoto Genryusai, he would have been kidnapped by the Shihuin family and married into his wife. The reason why the four major nobles are the four major nobles is that they have very strict control over their own bloodlines. Apart from anything else, Kuchiki Shang, who is so pervert with his soul-cutting sword, has not honestly married into the Kuchiki family. Coupled with the talents of Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku, Yamamoto Genryusai is very sure that the mother who gave birth to these two children must not be an ordinary person. This is what soul society is like. Only when the strong and the strong come together can children with super talents be born. Beilong looked at Yamamoto Genryusai and explained helplessly, "Master, listen to me and explain to you, things are not what you think." Yamamoto Genryusai was also afraid of scaring his two grandchildren, so he suppressed his anger and said, "Then explain it to me." "These two children are the disciples I just accepted yesterday," Beilong said speechlessly. Apprentice. As soon as these words came out, Yamamoto Genryusai was dumbfounded. This is what feelings are like. Beilong looked at the dumbfounded old man and felt helpless. "Beilong, what a good person he is. Why has your reputation become like this now?" After all his calculations, he only found two girls. Yamamoto Genryusai still didn't believe it. He squatted down and looked at the two little ones in front of him, and said kindly, "Master is here, don't be afraid." "Who are you, Beilong?" The two kids looked at Yamamoto Genryusai with some suspicion. "Why does this master look so smart?" "Master, we are the direct disciples of Master Beilong," Ichimaru Jin said in a decent manner. Yamamoto Genryusai saw that Ichimaru Jin didn't look like he was telling lies. Then he felt relieved and reached out to pick up the two children. He smiled and said, "Ha ha ha ha, that's really great. I, Yamamoto Genryusai, have it too." Disciple. Beilong also talked about the spiritual power levels of the two little ones. Yamamoto Genryusai was so happy that he couldn't stop laughing. Good guy, I didn't expect that his apprentice would accept two absolute geniuses as soon as he opened the door. After getting the free pass, Beilong can accept disciples. At this time, Yamamoto Genryusai really does not look like the leader of a violent organization, but like an ordinary old man holding his grandchildren. Although the two little ones were not low in Reiatsu, they were still not enough to watch in front of Yamamoto Genryusai. After a while, the two little ones were exhausted and fell asleep in a daze. Yamamoto Genryusai also carefully placed the two children on his bed, and said to Beilong, "In this case, I have a task for you." Beilong was stunned. What a guy, he even accepted a mission. "Master, tell me." At this time, Beilong still became serious. Yamamoto Genryusai picked up the tea bowl and took a sip and said, "Kuchiki Ginling came to the door some time ago and said that he wanted me to find a suitable teacher for his grandson, Yakuya Kuchiki. Old man Shan, you don't want me to accept him as my disciple, do you?" Beilong immediately understood what Yamamoto Genryusai meant. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded. "This might be a good thing for you. But what does the Kuchiki family want? Don't they always train their own successors? Kuchiki Yinling must be crazy to do this." Beilong was a little puzzled. Yamamoto Genryusai sighed and said, "Hey, what happened to Kuchiki Hibiki and Kuchiki Sojun was a huge blow to the Kuchiki family. There are two strong men who can take over the position of the head of the Kuchiki family. One has a weak spiritual body and cannot bear the powerful Reiatsu and died early. The other was forced to rebel against the Soul Society and was sealed. Now the huge Kuchiki family is really shaky. Yamamoto Genryusai also sighed. If the Kuchiki family can't have a person to carry the cauldron, I'm afraid it will slowly go downhill. Beilong understood. He had preconceived ideas. In his impression, Byakuya Kuchiki once again supported the Kuchiki family, but now Beilong is just a child, about the same age as his good apprentice Ichimaru Jin. Kuchiki Jin, it's impossible for an old fox like Suzu to put all his treasure on Byakuya Kuchiki. Then, it is normal to find a good supporter for your grandson. When I came to Yamamoto Genryusai, I actually wanted Beilong to accept a disciple. At the end of the team leader meeting, anyone who is not a fool can see that Yamamoto Genryusai values Beilong. Even fellow senior Kyoraku Shunsui expressed his position immediately. Kuchiki Ginling has lived for thousands of years and is not a fool. He must be. It's time to take action. Only guys like Hirako Shinji, Love Aikawa, and Muguruma Kensai don't have this concept in their minds at all. In other words, Hirako Shinji is the only one who has this concept, but he doesn't bother to get involved in these things. No wonder they were plotted by Aizen. Beilong thought for a moment, nodded and said, "Okay, master, I agree to accept the Kuchiki child as my disciple." Yamamoto Genryusai glanced at Beilong approvingly. That's right, Gotei 13 is not about fighting and killing, it is about human nature. It is impossible to become the captain if you are just brave and fierce. If you come out to hang out, you have to talk about your background. You're not at a disadvantage either. This kid from the Kuchiki family is now a 6th level spiritual power. He's almost as talented as your apprentice. The next head of the Kuchiki family must be him. Yamamoto Genryusai said. Beilong doesn't think there's any problem. It's a matter of mutual consent. Debai's talent is not bad. With his guidance, you can't go wrong with your strength. Seeing that Beilong didn't object, Yamamoto Genryusai continued, then tomorrow, you go to Kuchiki's house and meet your new apprentice. I understand, old man Sean, just leave him to me and you can rest assured. Beilong smiled happily. It made Yamamoto and Genryusai wonder if there was anything wrong with letting this kid take on a disciple. After Beilong finished talking to Yamamoto Genryusai, he also returned to the 4th team with his 2 puppies. Division 4, Deputy Captain's Room. Yoruichi took Soifan and Unohana Retsu to wait for Beilong and the 2 little ones to return. Since they became apprentices yesterday, the fight between Unohana Retsu and Yoruichi has disappeared. Mainly because the 2 women also know how important the other is to Beilong, so they will not continue fighting in front of Beilong. Of course, the fight is secretly going on. It's inevitable, after all, both of them hope Beilong likes them more. After Beilong came back with the 2 little ones, he first coaxed the 2 little ones to sleep, and then told him what old man Sean had told him. After Unohana Retsu took a sip of tea, he said calmly, "Yes, Lang, this is it might not be a bad thing for you." Yoruichi also nodded and said, although the current Kuchiki family still looks beautiful, in fact, it is only supported by Ginling Senpei. The current situation is not as good as our Shihuin family. Beilong agrees with Yoruichi's view. He is also one of the 5 nobles. Yoruichi knows the current situation of the Kuchiki family very well. He is from the Shihuin family. Yoruichi's younger brother Shihuin Yushiro is not bad in strength. He has reached the 2nd level with his instant strength. Waiting for Ling Wei, plus Shihuin Qiani is retired instead of dead, his combat power is completely guaranteed. If the current Kuchiki family did not have the support of the Shihuin family, I am afraid that they would be like the Shiba family and slowly decline. However, after deciding to take over Dabai, the power Beilong can control has expanded to a terrifying level. Needless to say, the old man will definitely hand over the 1st team to Beilong. The 2nd Division, the 4th Division, the 6th Division, the 8th Division, and the 13th Division. In less than half a month, Beilong had already secured 6 divisions. Half of Gotei 13 is currently in the hands of Beilong. If Beilong wants to, he can even directly become the 2nd person under Yamamoto Genryusai. Of course, there is no need, Gotei 13 will be his sooner or later anyway. As for Hirako Shinji's group, I still have to ask my Mr. Aizen. When Aizen counts them all, the 3rd team, the 7th team, the 9th team, and the 12th team will naturally fall into Beilong in hand. To put it bluntly, Beilong may even directly force Yamamoto Genryusai to abdicate. It is a pity that Beilong came to this world a little late, and powerful combat powers such as Kuchiki Hibiki, Tsunayashiro Tokunada, and Moleho Soya were not able to survive. Beilong himself knows very well that Aizen is not his ultimate goal. His biggest enemy is the son of the Spirit King and the next Spirit King, Yuwatch. The strength he has accumulated now is all for dealing with Yuwatch. After all, Beilong doesn't want Yuwatch to destroy the world. Although he can ensure that he will be safe, his girls don't have this ability. A world without anything is not what Beilong wants. The next day, Kuchiki House. Kuchiki Ginling has already been waiting in the lobby with little Byakuya wearing white training clothes. "Grandpa, who are we waiting for?" little Byakuya asked curiously. "Waiting for your teacher." Kuchiki Yinling sat down on her knees with her eyes closed. "My teacher?" little Byakuya asked in surprise. The current Byakuya is not the ice-faced one from back. Little Byakuya is very irritable and full of emotions. "Hey, Byakuya, did you miss me?" Yoruichi's voice came before he even entered the door. Hearing Yoruichi's teasing voice, little Byakuya's veins popped out on his forehead. "The demon cat is here again." "Byakuya, don't be rude." "Yes, Grandpa, I lost my temper." The sun shone into the living room, and a man and a woman walked in, of course Beilong and Yoruichi. As the head of Shihuan, it was the right thing for her to show up on this occasion today. It was also a favor to the Kuchiki family. Kuchiki Yinling and Byakuya Kuchiki stood up. "Vice Captain Beilong, please excuse me." Kuchiki Yinling said to Beilong very politely. "No, Senior Yinling, I don't dare to take this seriously." Beilong waved his hand quickly. Although it was a favor, he would not let Kuchiki Yinling treat him like this. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Beilong very curiously. This was the first time he saw his grandfather treat a vice captain with such respect. Beilong walked up to little Byakuya, rubbed little Byakuya's hair and said with a smile, "This kid is the disciple I want to take on." Little Byakuya didn't open Beilong's hand. He hadn't seen his father much since he was a child, let alone felt any father's love. Little Byakuya, who never let others touch his head, was actually in front of this man. I felt unprecedented warmth in my body. Kuchiki Ginling saw that little Byakuya had no objection, and nodded with satisfaction. "Byakuya, this is your teacher Beilong." Vice Captain Beilong is a close disciple of Captain Yamamoto, and he has won the title of Free and Clear. You need to practice hard with Vice Captain Beilong." Little Byakuya came back to his senses and decisively bowed to his master. "Master, please bow to me, my disciple Byakuya Kuchiki." Beilong has no intention of stopping him, he deserves this. After little Byakuya became a disciple, Beilong also smiled and pulled little Byakuya up and said to Kuchiki Yinling, "Senior Yinling, I will take this child away. When he completes his training, I will send him back." Kuchiki Yinling looked at little Byakuya with reluctance in his eyes, but for the sake of the family, he could only let little Byakuya and Beilong leave. "Don't worry, Grandpa, I will work hard." After little Byakuya promised Kuchiki Yinling, he also left with Beilong carrying his little baggage. Yoruichi saw that little Byakuya had finished his apprenticeship, and then he teased him and said, "Byakuya, since you have already become your apprentice, why don't you call me master?" Byakuya Kuchiki looked at Yoruichi in disbelief, with an expression that almost said, "My master is wise and powerful, how could he fall in love with you?" Yoruichi was so angry that he almost repaired Byakuya on the spot, but was stopped by Beilong. Division 4, Deputy Captain Jai. "Master, Yoruichi, you are back." Seeing Beilong and Yoruichi return, Ichimaru-jin and Matsumoto Rengoku also ran over to greet Beilong. Children really need to be raised from an early age. The three little ones including Byakuya, although they have lived in Seoul society for more than 10 years, are only about 2 years old in terms of lifespan. Beilong picked up Ichimaru-jin and little Byakuya one by one, and Yoruichi held little Rengoku. "Let's go back to the house and talk." In the room, three little ones sat together and stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes. The three of them looked at each other like curious babies. Beilong rubbed the little faces of the three little ones and said with a smile, "Okay, you three, please stop looking at each other like that. I'll introduce them to you." With that said, Beilong pulled over little Byakuya and said, "This is Byakuya Kuchiki, my new disciple. These two are your senior brother Ichimaru Jin and second senior sister Matsumoto Rengaku, who also just became my disciples." Little Byakuya greeted Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengaku very politely. After the three little ones became familiar with each other, Beilong nodded with satisfaction. Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu also walked into the room at this time. The two women sat next to Beilong, one on the left and the other on the right. Of course, Soi Fan stood beside Yoruichi. Beilong looked at the three little ones in front of him and said seriously, "Since the three of you have become my disciples, it is my duty as a teacher to educate you to become talents. The next training will be very difficult." As soon as these words came out, not only did the three little ones show no fear, but they all showed high spirits. Beilong was even more satisfied with what the three little ones did. Beilong stood up, took out a fantasy book and opened it. A door made of books appeared in front of the three little animals, which shocked them all. The three of them had never seen such a magical thing before. Even little Byakuya is very curious. Although his family has a world crossing gate, it is obvious that Beilong has nothing to do with the world crossing gate. Beilong rubbed the heads of the three little ones and said, "Okay, don't be surprised, follow me," he said and walked into the door first. The three girls also took the three little ones into the fantasy world one by one. The scenery here was completely different from that of Soul Society. There were even giant dragons flying in the sky, which made the three little ones' eyes sparkle. Beilong clapped his hands and asked the three little ones to come back to their senses. "This is where you will practice next. The master will teach you everything about Shinigami here." The current three little ones are still blind to the practice of Shinigami and have no idea at all. However, Beilong is a player who has been personally trained by Yamamoto Genryusai, and he will start from the most basic level to teach the three little ones. The Shinigami's techniques are nothing more than the four major items of slicing fists and walking ghosts. Of course, the most important thing is Reiatsu. Someone said something, and I strongly agree with it, that is, Reiatsu determines the combat effectiveness of Shinigami. And you three are geniuses who are one in a million. Hearing Beilong's affirmation, the three little ones instantly raised their little faces, looking proud. But just because you are geniuses now does not mean that you will still be geniuses in the future. Beilong changed the topic and started teaching the three little ones. Beilong, Yoruichi, and Unohana Retsu released their own Reiatsu together in front of the three little ones. Although the three of them were not completely released, the third-level spiritual power was already more than the three little ones could bear. The three little ones only felt severe oppression on their bodies, and couldn't help but kneel down on one knee and gasp for air. Matsumoto Rengaku's situation was better than Byakuya Kuchiki and Ichimaru Jin, but at the same time she was also the one who received the main care, and was also affected by Reiatsu. Out of breath. Fortunately, Beilong and the others just wanted the three little ones not to be proud, and quickly put away the Reiatsu, making the three little ones breathe a sigh of relief. Remember, this is the first lesson I teach you. Never be proud. Don't underestimate any of your opponents, Beilong said seriously. The three little ones nodded fiercely, and then Beilong arranged a training plan for the three little ones. White hits and shunpo were taught by Flash Goddess Yoruichi, swordsmanship was taught by Unohana Retsu, and Kido and the training of the soul-cutting sword were taught by Beilong. The enhancement of Shinigami Reiatsu comes from natural growth on the one hand, and communication with one's own soul-zanting sword on the other. For example, Kurosaki Ichigo, the chosen son, will gain more power every time he communicates with himself with the soul-zanting sword. Not only him, but also the male supporting character Aburai Renji, so it is indispensable for the training of the soul-cutting sword. For example, the guys in the 11th division, although they are powerful, do have a lot of problems. Under the leadership of Zaraki Kenpachi, each of them is mediocre in their own soul-zanting sword training. In the end, Zaraki Kenpachi went to develop the sword. The soul knife is gone. Although Beilong's communication with the soul-slaying sword relies on cheating, it doesn't mean that he can't teach students. The three little ones can be regarded as using the back door to get their own sealed state in advance. In the following practice, I can feel the power of master and mistress. After all, according to the level of the system, Yoruichi's Shunpo is at full level LV10, and the same is true for Unohana Retsu's Kendo. Moreover, being full level does not mean that you can't continue to improve. Whether it is Yoruichi or Unohana Retsu, they are actually still making slow progress, but not so obvious. In this way, time slowly came to 113 years before the plot began, that is, before Aizen Sosuke caused trouble for the first time. After decades of practice, the three little ones back then have turned into half-teen-year-olds, who are between 11 and 12 years old in terms of age. However, due to the influence of spiritual power, the three little ones are no different from 14 to 15-year-old children. Master. Morning. Times 3. The three little ones saw Beilong getting up, with an expression of admiration and respect on their faces. Decades of teachings made the three little ones recognize their master from the bottom of their hearts. Hey, why did you three get up so early today? Beilong looked at the three half-grown men in front of him and asked in surprise. It was Master Unohana who asked us to wake you up. Ichimaru Jin, as the senior brother, was the first to speak. Huh, did Lai say what happened? Beilong asked with a yawn. Master asked all the captains and vice-captains to go to the team leaders' room together to inform them of important matters. Byakuya continued what Ichimaru Jin said. Okay, I understand. I'll pick up your master wife first, and you three will make your own arrangements for today's practice. Beilong nodded and disappeared in front of the three of them in an instant. As expected of Master, over the years, Master seems to have become stronger. Rengoku sighed as he looked at the place where Beilong disappeared. Because she was not attacked by Aizen, even though Rengoku was the second senior sister, her spiritual power was the strongest among the three. Even she did not see how Beilong disappeared. Chapter 21. Retsu, do you know what happened? Beilong and Unohana Retsu were walking on the way to the team leader's room, and they kept bumping into Shinigami team members greeting them on the way. Unohana Retsu shook his head slightly. I don't know the specific situation. If there is nothing serious, the captain will usually not summon us. Beilong rolled his eyes. When did his Lai learn these Chirulu talk? Before Beilong could say anything, a fragrant breeze came over. Yoruichi didn't care about other people's eyes and directly hugged Beilong's arm and said, Little Beilong, did you miss me? Unohana Retsu was used to it and said without raising his head or eyes, Captain Shihuin, please respect yourself. Yoruichi is not afraid of the threat of Unohana Retsu at all. Over the decades, Yoruichi has already figured out Unohana Retsu's temper. If it were a few decades ago, Yoruichi would never dare to do this, but Unohana Retsu at that time would definitely do it. Drawing a sword to kill someone. But it's different now. Even when he draws his sword, Unohana Retsu can completely control his behavior. Beilong spent decades slowly wearing away Unohana Retsu's anger, but instead made Unohana Retsu's state of mind to a higher level. In the past 2 years, Lingwei has even broken through to the first level. It can be said that even Yamamoto Genryusai, after releasing Bankai, dare not say that he can definitely defeat Unohana Retsu. Not only does the sword that loses its viciousness not become weaker, but it becomes stronger. Yoruichi's progress is not that great, but he has stabilized to the second level of spiritual power, which is still much better than other captains. After all, Muguruma Kensai and the others have been Reiatsu for decades, but they are still only third-class spiritual powers. Unohana Retsu glanced at Yoruichi with an expression of disdain. After all, Beilong has often stayed at Unohana Retsu's house in the past few decades. Yoruichi thought so too, but the problem was that the Shihuin family couldn't possibly watch their heads sleep in vain. Instead, Yoruichi never succeeded. Seeing Unohana Retsu's expression, Yoruichi, who originally wanted to be angry at Unohana Retsu, was so angry that his teeth itched. Omaeda Nozomi, who was following Yoruichi, was really sweating. Is this something he can see? But fortunately, a voice came and helped Omaeda get out of the siege. It's Captain Unohana and Captain Yoruichi. They came really early. Oh, and Vice Captain Beilong. A frivolous voice sounded, and Hiroko Shinji pulled his pair of shoes that had been worn for an unknown period of time and walked over, with a helpless Aizen behind him. Sorry, Vice Captain Beilong, Captain Hiroko, he didn't mean that. Aizen has become accustomed to this kind of apology. It's okay, Hiroko has this kind of personality. I don't care at all. Beilong smiled happily on the surface, but in fact he was really thinking in his heart, no wonder no one spoke for you when you were being plotted. It's just you. You must have offended a lot of people by talking nonsense. Everyone came to the team leader's room chatting and laughing, and Kyoraku Shunsui wearing a bamboo hat walked in alone this time. Sorry, I seem to be late. The leader of the Kyoko band is not late this time. This is really an improvement. When Hirako saw Kyoraku, he immediately smiled and complained. Nonsense, I'm always the first to arrive, and I've never been late. Kyoryu said firmly after hearing this. Beilong was speechless for a while, and he didn't know who was the one who was punished by Old Man Sean to look at the gate of the first team last time. Senior brother Kyoryu, senior brother Jashiro, hasn't he recovered yet? Beilong also asked. Since the last banquet, Jashiro Yukitake returned to the 13th division and said that he was not sick. Everyone thought that Jashiro Yukitake was dying, and even organized a group to visit him once. Over the past few decades, Jashiro Yukitake has been with him. Yugentang's recuperation never appeared at all. Haha, I just came back from Jashiro. I estimate that in a few years, Jashiro will be able to move normally. That's really the best. When senior brother Jashiro recovers from his illness, we must have a good celebration. The two senior brothers discussed this matter openly, acting like brothers and sisters. But Aizen on the side had a cold light flashing in his eyes. Obviously, in his opinion, there was not that much harmony between the two brothers. Aizen went to see Jashiro Yukitake. In his opinion, Jashiro Yukitake was not sick at all, but was injured. The last time he went, Jashiro Yukitake's Reiatsu was so weak that he was no longer as good as a team member. I was the one who called the leader of the Beijing band from bed. At this time, Lisa Yakinmaru, who had a beautiful face and plump figure, suddenly gave a thumbs up and proudly spoke to the captains present. Thank you for waking up Kyoraku, Lisa. When the captains heard this, they looked at Lisa with pity. There was no one else with such a shameful captain. It's not hard, I kicked him off the bed. Lisa heard this and said proudly again. It hurts a lot, okay. After listening to Lisa's words, Kyoryu touched his waist with a distressed look on his face. However, all the captains are very envious of Kyoraku Shunsui. Obviously, in the eyes of everyone, Kyoraku Shunsui is the guy who is the vice captain when he has something to do, and he is the vice captain when he has nothing to do. Why did you call us here this time? Love Aikawa asked first. Don't you know, the captain of the 10th division was killed in action. Killed in action? How could this happen? He has only been in office for less than 10 years. He was unlucky. He encountered a Vasto Lord level Manos Grande. Although he tried his best to kill the opponent, he still died of his injuries. The speaker was Kuchiki Ginling, who had just entered. After hearing the news, everyone fell silent. As the captain of Gote 13, it is extremely difficult to successfully step down from the position of captain. You might encounter a strong enemy and die in battle one day. Haha, let's not talk about this anymore. In addition to the captain of the 10th division, there is another captain who has also stepped down as captain. Kyoraku Shunsui changed the subject instantly. Oh, it must be Hikifuna Kiryu, the captain of the 12th division. Beilong also suddenly realized. What, Captain Hikifuna was also killed? Aizen asked in confusion, why didn't he receive the news? No, it's not death, it's promotion. Yoruichi, who had been silent, said. Promotion. Aizen Sosuke frowned, as if something had happened that was beyond his control. He doesn't know that Gote 13 will have new opportunities for promotion after becoming the captain. That's right, it's a promotion. Oh, where is it? Kyoraku Shunsui and Kuchiki Ginling looked so clear that the other captains and vice-captains didn't know what they were talking about. Aizen's heart sank. He would check it carefully when he went back. Something unexpected happened. But speaking of it, there are really not many captains who can really stay in Gote 13 feet for hundreds of years. In terms of seniority, only me, Jashiro, Yoruichi and the Silver Bells have been the longest. Kyoraku Shunsui counted on his fingers. Senior brother Jingle, you forgot someone. Beilong reminded. Oh, yes, there is Unohana Senpai, but Unohana Senpai shouldn't be considered a century-level captain. Unohana Senpai is a 1,000-year level senior. Kyoryu thought of something interesting. Suddenly he burst out laughing. Beilong covered his forehead speechlessly. He didn't expect Kyoraku Shunsui to seek death like this. Kyoraku, you are so happy to smile today, Unohana Retsu, who was standing next to Beilong, said. Did you encounter something funny today? Why not share it with all of us, let us all have fun together. The cold beauty who can be said to be the most beautiful woman in the world looked at Kyoraku Shunsui and asked with a smile. Forehead. For a moment, both Kyoraku Shunsui and everyone present fell silent, especially Kyoraku Shunsui, who couldn't laugh at all at the moment. Kingraku, why don't you laugh? You don't smile, is it because you don't like to smile by nature? The cold beauty looked at Kyoraku, whose smile fleetingly disappeared, and continued to ask. Kyoraku was a little flustered at the moment, and sweat continued to form on his forehead. It's over, it's over, it's over. I got a little carried away, just thinking about Unohana Senpai now that she has become my sister-in-law, and I forgot her previous identity. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to die here. Ooh, my little Lisa, I'm afraid you're going to be a widow. I'm not married yet. Kyoraku was already panicking. Just now, he seemed to have accidentally provoked the person who should not be provoked among the Seraiti. HMPH. Unohana snorted coldly after seeing Kyoraku's panic. Beilong held her rui and gave Kyoraku Shunsui a chance to breathe. At this moment, Chojiro Sasaki stepped in and said, Captains, vice captains, and the captain are waiting for you in the head room. Beilong was also the first to pull Unohana Retsu into the team's head room. After Unohana left, all the captains present felt relieved. Many of them would lightly pat Kyoraku on the shoulder as a sign of respect when they left Kyoraku. Kyoraku Shunsui's face was even more colorful. He was already thinking about asking his junior brother to say a few more kind words. Lisa looked at her man speechlessly, and was thinking about whether to collect his body for a while. Everyone, after entering the conference room, consciously stand on my left and right sides according to the difference between even numbers and odd numbers. The Gotei 13 team leader meeting will begin soon. Chojiro Sasaki was like a master of ceremonies. This time, except for the vacancy in the 10th division, the 11th division, the 12th division, and the 13th division all came without captains. Even at the vice captain level, only Sarutobi Hiyori from Division 12 arrived, and the other divisions didn't even have vice captains. Yamamoto Genryusai looked at the big cat, 2 kittens and 3 kittens, and really didn't know what to say. This batch of Gotei 13 is so weak that even a fool like Muguruma Kensai can become the captain. It's really outrageous. However, Gotei 13 like this is liked by the nobles, and they don't want Gotei 13 to have strong combat power. Gotei 13 like that is so difficult to control. Yamamoto Genryusai opened his eyes and said, I asked you to come here today for 2 things. The first thing is that the captain of the 10th division died in battle, and the captain of the 12th division was promoted. Both teams need new leaders. Captain, if you have talents in your team, you can recommend them to me after the meeting or now. As soon as he finished speaking, Kyoraku Shunsui stood up and said, then I directly recommend Vice Captain Beilong. Vice Captain Beilong is definitely capable of taking up the position of captain. Yamamoto Genryusai frowned slightly, but before he could speak, Unohana Retsu stood up first and said, I think that Vice Captain Beilong is not enough to be the captain. He has not fully mastered Bankai and is not strong enough to be the captain. Yamamoto Genryusai glanced at Unohana Retsu approvingly, and Yoruichi also stood up and said, yes, Beilong is only a 4th-class spiritual power now, and he cannot meet the standards to be a captain at all. Kyoraku Shunsui frowned slightly, as if he didn't believe what Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu said. Then, I was rude. Kyoraku Shunsui saluted and stood back. Everyone thinks it's quite baffling. In recent decades, Kyoraku Shunsui seems to be very anxious, and his words and actions are no longer as steady as before. Only Aizen Sosuke smiled secretly, looked at Beilong who looked puzzled, and thought to himself, I see, Beilong, you actually have such a big weakness. However, after Kyoraku Shunsui stopped talking, the other captains also stared at each other without saying anything. Yamamoto Genryusai shook his head helplessly. Why did Gotei 13 become such a bear now? Can't you even get a captain-level Shinigami? Then, the next thing is the second thing. The captain of the 12th division has resigned as captain for some reasons and will leave Gotei 13 soon. Shihuin Yoruichi, Unohana Retsu, Beilong, the three of you and the day after tomorrow will join me for former Captain Hikifuna Kiryu bids farewell. Yes, Beilong and the others agreed quickly. As soon as these words came out, Kyoraku Shunsui's expression became even more ugly, but he soon returned to his lazy look, as if he didn't care about anything. Only Aizen, who had been observing Kyoraku Shunsui, saw this. The meeting dispersed, some were happy and some were sad. Beilong, Yoruichi, and Unohana Retsu were left to discuss the day after tomorrow. Except for the Beilong three, the other captains and vice-captains quickly left the team leader's room. Only Kyoraku Shunsui still stood there with a stiff face. The color on his face seemed to change, and he looked at Yamamoto Genryusai with hatred. The direction people leave. Finally, Kyoraku Shunsui sighed helplessly, loosened his clenched fists, and slowly left the team leader's room. All this was seen by Aizen Sosuke in the dark. After Kyoraku Shunsui left, Aizen Sosuke also walked out of the darkness, and the surrounding team members seemed to have not seen him at all. Aizen Sosuke had an inexplicable smile on his face, and he used his fingers to hold his eyes on his face. Captain Kyoband, are you really willing to do this? Ha 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 ha. Aizen Sosuke sighed and disappeared instantly. On the other side, Yamamoto Genryusai took the Beilong trio back to his own captain's room. The few people present were all people whom Yamamoto Genryusai absolutely trusted, so Yamamoto Genryusai did not continue to be sullen, but asked Beilong and the others to sit down. Chojiro Sasaki is of course standing behind Yamamoto Genryusai, still acting as a bodyguard. I ask the three of you to stay, and you should know why. Yes, the day after tomorrow, the Zero Squadron stationed at Seoul King Palace will arrive at Saraiti. Yamamoto Genryusai said slowly. This news came as no surprise to the three people present. Two were aware of the existence of Team Zero, and one had opened his eyes. However, what Yamamoto Genryusai said next surprised the three of them. The reason why the three of you are asked to welcome Team Zero with me is because they want to see you Beilong. Yamamoto Genryusai's words were earth-shattering. What? Yoruichi exclaimed. Even Beilong himself was very surprised. See me. I shouldn't have any contact with them, right? Beilong said with a confused look. Yamamoto Genryusai shook his head slightly and said, I don't know what Team Zero wants to do, but according to Nikaya Wang Yu, it's not a bad thing for you, but a good thing. Beilong frowned slightly. Could it be that his identity was discovered by the Spirit King? But now the Spiritual King is just a stick, without even a thought. How could he have any instructions? As for the monk whose real name is called, it's not that Beilong looks down on him. If he really has the strength to know his identity, there is no way he can't defeat you. Watch. If soldiers come to block it, water will come to cover it with earth. Although those guys from Team Zero seem to be condescending, what they say is still credible. Yoruichi saw that Yamamoto Genryusai didn't pay attention to this, so he knew that the problem was not big, so he spoke directly. Road. My relationship with Kirinji Tenshiro is not bad. In a sense, we are each other's teachers. I think I still have some face. Unohana Retsu's words were more haughty. Beilong himself is not worried about anything. After all, in his current situation, Team Zero can't kill him even if they are tied up together. Maybe it's only the King of Spirits who pretends to be dead now that will make Beilong scared. Beilong also held the hands of the two girls respectively, comforting them and saying, don't you understand my situation? Even if they have any intentions, there is nothing they can do to me. Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu felt relieved after hearing Beilong's words. They were also concerned but confused, forgetting that their men were even more perverts than Yamamoto Genryusai. Yamamoto Genryusai coughed speechlessly. Good guy, I'm showing off. Beilong and the other three also restrained themselves for a moment, stood up and said, Teacher, we will meet the day after tomorrow. Let's go quickly, it's going to make this house smell sour. Yamamoto Genryusai said angrily. Beilong laughed and took the two girls back to the fourth team. Yamamoto Genryusai looked at his apprentice and shook his head helplessly. Beilong is not overestimating himself. Over the past few decades, Beilong's strength has been steadily improving. Name: Beilong. Gender: male. Title: Deputy Captain of the 4th Division, 5 times the idol reward. Lingwei. Second class 34,965,343 100ths million. White hits, LV 8 inches. Shunpo, LV 8 inches. Kido, LV 9 inches. Swordsmanship, LV 9 inches. Soul cutting sword, fire flame sword fiery. 98%, Senkai, 67%. Instant coax beginner level. A moment hockey, LV 6 entangle. Observation hockey, LV 1 inch. Conqueror's hockey, LV 3 grows as status increases. I have props. Thunder fruit version without side effects. A special thunder attributed soul cutting sword not extracted. All heavens kendo encyclopedia beginner version Conqueror's hockey training method 5 fairy beans abbreviated. During the past few decades, relying on the crazy beatings of several apprentices and several girls, Beilong's panel has undergone earth-shaking changes. Not only has Reiatsu broken through to the second level of spiritual power, but the 4 skills of killing fists and walking ghosts have also undergone tremendous changes, and even got a new soul-cutting sword Senkai. This is Soul Society's unique wood-type soul-zanding sword, a soul-zanding sword made with his own Shinigami power. Of course, the system also helped Yidiandian. Moreover, the fire sword Agni is now ready to be Bankai. Beilong is now extremely looking forward to the performance of the 10 sacred blades in the Shinigami world. One's own strength is Beilong's confidence. This is the real reason why he is not afraid of Team Zero. Ah, Master, you are back. As soon as he entered his yard, Matsumoto Rengoku, who was practicing, immediately stopped and jumped directly into Beilong's arms, hugging Beilong's arm very clingingly. Although he is still young, Matsumoto Rengoku's talent has already been revealed. At such a young age, he already has a huge little Rengoku, which is really something Beilong didn't expect. What's even more outrageous is that because Matsumoto Rengoku grew up with Ichimaru Jin and Byakuya, and because of their relationship as senior brothers, the little girl is just a senior brother with them and has not developed any other feelings at all. Even Ichimaru Jin now acts like a senior brother and only regards Rengoku as his junior sister. Beilong is also a little helpless. It was too early to bring them back. Things have changed a lot. In addition, now Ichimaru Jin couldn't beat Rengoku, so Rengoku and Ichimaru Jin stopped calling. In the past few decades, the growth rate of Beilong's 3 young apprentices has not been slow at all. Not to mention anything else, the growth rate of Reiatsu alone is far beyond other people's imagination. Currently, Byakuya and Ichimaru Jin are both 4th-class spiritual powers and are already among the best at the vice-captain level. Matsumoto Rengoku is even more outrageous. The talent of Matsumoto Rengoku with a complete soul is even more amazing. At a young age, he has already reached the edge of 3rd-class spiritual powers. Once you master Bankai, you will be a solid captain-level figure. And because the soul is intact, Rengoku's soul Zenkin is no longer the Heineka in the original work. After all, Heineka is not so much Matsumoto Rengoku's soul Zanto, but a part of Ichimaru Jin's soul Zanto. After all, given Matsumoto Rengoku's situation at the time, if Ichimaru Jin hadn't risked his life to save him, let alone the vice-captain, it would have been a big question whether Matsumoto Rengoku would have survived. Moreover, Beilong's teaching is not just about learning knowledge and practicing Reiatsu, practical classes are even more essential. Of course, the teachers of the practical class are Unohana Retsu and Beilong. These 2 people are very deadly. Anyway, as long as they don't die directly, Unohana Retsu's Kaido and Kaido can save them. However, this caused the 3 little ones to deal with Unohana Retsu a little bit. After all, the master's wife is usually very gentle to them, but when it comes to fighting, she is really ruthless. Of course, they also learned Conqueror's Hockey, but the 3 of them are good at different directions. Ichimaru Jin is good at observation hockey, and paired with his soul-cutting sword Shinso, he is really a master of assassination. Yoruichi even wants Ichimaru Jin to join the 2nd division, has inherited her legacy. Matsumoto Rengoku is good at armed colors. Her powerful spiritual power provides her with a strong body, making her armed colors far stronger than those of her 2 senior brothers. Byakuya Kuchiki is good at conquerors, which is due to his background. The Kuchiki family's status in Soul Society makes Byakuya Kuchiki naturally good at this. Of course, Beilong can't favor one over the other. Of course, his 2 wives have also mastered Conqueror's Hockey proficiently. Oh, and Xiao Xiaoling, she has also learned it, but when learning hockey, Soifan's face turned red and made Beilong was stunned for a while. After giving the apprentice some measurements, Beilong and Unohana sat on their sofa. Beilong asked Urahara Kazuki to make this thing. After all, Beilong was really not interested in kneeling down at all. Team 0. Beilong's fingers tapped the armrest of the sofa rhythmically. Indeed, the fact that Team 0 wanted to see him somewhat disrupted his plan. Beilong really wanted to go to the Lingwang Palace, but he didn't expect the opportunity to come so suddenly. But since there is this opportunity, it must be firmly grasped, and Beilong is not worried about anything. Lang, do you have any concerns? Mao Zhihua noticed Beilong's confusion and asked. Beilong shook his head slightly and said, "No, I already have a plan. Let's talk about the captain issue. Yoruichi, I remember that Urahara Kazuki should be strong enough to be the captain." Yoruichi nodded and said, "I was just about to discuss this with you. Should we fight for the captain's position? We must fight for it. Since Urahara Kazuki has this strength, don't let him bury it." Beilong affirmed. "I understand, I will tell Mr. Shan," Yoruichi said. After the business talk was over, Unohana Retsu also took Beilong to prepare for a kendo competition. Before leaving, he gave Yoruichi a provocative look. Yoruichi was so angry that he wanted to join their competition directly. Soon, the sound of the two people sparring could be heard in the inner room. Beilong relied on his soul-cutting sword to kill one of the 7 in and 7 out of Unohana Retsu. Unohana Retsu's voice sounded gentle, and the two Reiatsu were unstable. It was obvious that the battle is very fierce. Yoruichi was so angry that his veins bulged, but he could only guard the two of them with Soifan, who was already blushing and could not see his original skin color. If anger could kill, Yoruichi would have chopped Unohana Retsu into mincemeat. The next day, Yoruichi also submitted Urahara Kazuki's application to Yamamoto Genryusai for the position of captain of the Gotei 13 Division 12. After testing by Yamamoto Genryusai, Beilong, Yoruichi, and Unohana Retsu, Urahara Kazuki did have the opportunity to serve as captain. The strength of the position, but the formal appointment will not be made until Beilong and others meet the 0 Division. Shiba family land. Yamamoto Genryusai came to Shiba's house with the Beilong trio and this time's protagonist Hikafuna Kiryu. The current Shiba family is relatively unlucky. The main family only has Shiba Kyan with a younger sister and a younger brother. The branch house only has Shiba. Focus on one person. Apart from 2 servants, there is no one left in this huge family. As the head of the family, Shiba Isshin personally brought Shiba Kyan and Shiba Kuzuru to greet Yamamoto Genryusai and others. Different from the uncle in Beilong's memory, the current Shiba is still a handsome young man, and he is indeed a real young man. "Captain Yamamoto, please make a trip in person," Shiba Isshin said respectfully. "These two are my nephews and nieces, Shiba Kyan and Shiba Kongzuru." Shiba introduced Isshin. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded and returned the greeting. "This time I'm troubling you, the Shiba family." Shiba Isshin burst out laughing. It was obvious that this guy was indeed a generous person. Yoruichi took her best friend Shiba Kukaku aside to whisper. From time to time, the two girls glanced at Beilong. Shiba Kukaku didn't know what he said in Yoruichi's ear, which made Yoruichi blush, and then glared at Beilong, making Beilong a little confused. Beilong was not idle either. He pulled Shiba Isshin and Shiba Kyan to preach to them, hoping that they could join Gotei 13. After all, the situation of the Shiba family is not very good now, and they also need this power to maintain their status. Otherwise, their family would have to move frequently to avoid some people's thoughts, just like in the original work. Shiba Isshin and Shiba Kyan are also a little moved, but the matter is not settled yet. Beilong estimates that next time he lets the recovered Jashiro Yukitaki try again, there should be no problem. On the contrary, Hibafune Kiryu, who was about to be promoted, remained silent. Obviously, Hibafune Kiryu was not very confident. After all, the last time Team 0 appeared in Soul Society was back when Kirinji Tenshiro was promoted. Suddenly, a black spot appeared in the sky. Yamamoto Genryusai's pupils shrank and he said, "Here it comes." Something like an elevator room fell from the sky, as if it was guided, and landed accurately in the yard of Shiba's house. Beilong has some understanding. No wonder the Shiba family has to set aside such an area no matter where they move. This place of love is prepared for the Zero Division. The smoke from the Tianju chariot slowly dissipated, and 4 strange creatures appeared in the yard of Shiba's house. Warmly welcome Hekafuna Kiryu to join the Zero Division. A huge red banner was held by 2 young men, and at the same time, the 2 guys cheered like Tarzan. Behind the banner are 2 guys who play and sing. Shiramaru Senjumaru plays the erhu with her homemade arms, and Monk, whose real name is called Monk, even plays the suona. If you didn't know better, you would have thought that Kiryu Hekafuna was getting married. What's up? Beilong never expected that these guys would appear in this form. Beilong's eyelids twitched involuntarily. He turned to look at Yamamoto Genryusai and asked doubtfully, Master, are you sure these guys are from the Zero Squadron? Yamamoto Genryusai himself was silent. What the hell are these Zero Division guys doing? Hekafuna Kiryu was wondering if he had made a mistake by agreeing to be promoted to the Zero Division. Fortunately, this farce ended quickly, and the 4 members of Team Zero became serious. This man wore a ring of fluorescent red beads around his neck. No matter how you looked at him, he was a Yamato-style man. He smiled kindly at Beilong and others and introduced himself with a smile. My name is Ikibe Hayasu. I'm the captain of Team Zero. Everyone was speechless for a while. Is this idiot really the leader of Team Zero? Are you sure he's not here to make fun of you? Hekafuna Kiryu. Who is Hekafuna Kiryu? Namaya Wang Yu was even more heavyweight, looking around like a little gangster. Long time no see, Unohana. Kirinji Tenshiro also greeted Unohana Retsu, but Unohana ignored him at all, with an expression of, I definitely don't know him. Hekafuna Kiryu said helplessly, I am Hekafuna Kiryu. The real name Monk glanced at Hekafuna Kiryu, nodded and said, okay, then just come with us. Then, the monk who called him by his real name turned around again and asked, which one is Beilong? Beilong said, that's right. As soon as he finished speaking, Namaya Wang Yu seemed to have seen some godlike figure. He ran to Beilong like a dogleg and said, are you Beilong? Great, you can also join our Zero Division. I can all take you to drive impart every day. Upon hearing this, Beilong felt sleepy, but when he turned around, Yoruichi and Unohana Retsu's eyes could kill him. Beilong just reluctantly said, no, I still like to stay in Soul Society. Hey, is that so? What a pity, we can drive impart every day. Namaya Wang Yu looked sad. Yamamoto Genryusai frowned slightly and said, what do you want to do with Beilong? Actually, it's not that we have anything to do with Beilong, but that Lord Spirit King wants to see Beilong. Ikibe Hayasu wrapped his arms in front of him and continued to smile at Beilong and others. Everyone present had a look on their face. If others don't know what kind of jerk the Spirit King is now, how can they not know? Ikibe Hayasu saw the change in everyone's expression, and said helplessly, everyone is very aware of the situation of Lord Soul King, but I really didn't lie. It is really Lord Soul King who wants to see Beilong. At most, I won't in more than 10 days, Beilong can return to Soul Society. Beilong and others can feel that Ikibe Hayasu is not telling lies. After all, for Ikibe Hayasu, it doesn't matter who is the Spirit King. As long as the world is not destroyed, there is no problem at all. Beilong thought about it and realized that there was really no harm in going to the Lingwang Palace. After all, he still had an absolute trump card in his hand that was useless. He nodded and said, okay, I'll go with you. Both Yoruichi and Unohana looked at Beilong with some worry. Beilong smiled and said, it's okay, I'm sure to come back. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded and said, okay, I will wait for your return at Soul Society. This scene made Hekafuna Kiryu, who was to be promoted to a special agent of the Zero Squadron, become a supporting role. Hearing that Beilong agreed, Ikibe Hayasu and the others were not in Moji. They quickly entered the Tianju chariot with Hekafuna Kiryu and Beilong, and returned to Soul King Palace with the help of the Shiba family cannon. There are 72 barriers between the Soul King's palace and Seraiti, which require the King's key to break through. In other words, an ordinary Shinigami wants to fly to the Soul King's palace using free flying equipment, similar to that used by Shihuin Yoruichi in the original work, or fly to the Soul King's palace by his own ability, or something like it is completely impossible for a Quincy or a Fullbringer to gather or manipulate the spirits to form a foothold and then climb up to the Soul King's palace bit by bit. Even Aizen, who is as resourceful as a god, or Yuach himself, the son of a god, cannot bypass those 72 barriers. In other words, the King Key is indispensable if you want to enter the Soul King's palace. As for the so-called King Key, it is the skeleton of the members of Team Zero who have been recast by the power of the Soul King after being successfully selected. Boom! With a roar, the Tenju chariot that was blasted up by the Shiba cannon finally landed on the Amitasanda of Soul King Palace. Arrive. As the door of the Tianju chariot opened, the monk took the lead to walk out of the Tianju chariot, leaving Beilong with a seemingly chic back. Beilong was speechless for a while. If he wanted to, Ikibe Hyasube would be his servant now. The moment Beilong stepped onto the Amitasanda of Soul King Palace, he felt an invisible Reiatsu falling on him. The richness of Soul King Reiatsu was far superior to that of Soul Society and even Seraiti. I'm afraid some people with weaker spirit bodies and Reiatsu will be unable to move here. Celebrate. This is not a place that ordinary Shinigami can bring. As the monk moved forward, he showed Beilong an expression that said you really deserve to be here. Beilong was speechless for a while. Hey, you also want to be father-in-law Wazo, why do you still want to do it for me? Senjumaru, you take Hikafuna Kiryu to meet the Soul King first and cast the palace. We have something to tell brother Beilong. Senjumaru nodded and took the lead to leave with Hikafuna Kiryu. Hikafuna Kiryu gave Beilong a cautious look before leaving. However, the monk and others did not say anything. Instead, they continued to introduce Beilong to the Lingwang Palace. This is Amitasanda. You can understand this place as a transit station. Now look up. The 4 pot lid-like things in the sky are the palaces of R0 Division members. The top thing like a tower is called inside the Soul King's palace, that's where the Soul King rests. Strictly speaking, that's the real Soul King's palace. The monk didn't seem to notice the difference in the density of spirit particles in the air, or he had long been accustomed to the density of spirit particles in the Spirit King's palace. As he strode forward, he introduced Beilong behind him. Beilong was behind the monk and looked up following the monk's words. Sure enough, he saw 4 pot lid-like things in a tower-like palace. The heart of a member of Team Zero. Beilong understands it very well. He even understands the Spirit King Palace better than Ikibe Hyasube, but he has never seen it with his own eyes. Beilong narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at the Rigong. He knew that the Rigong was not simple. The Rigong of Team Zero was not only a place for Team Zero members to rest, live and work, but also the foundation of life for Team Zero members. As long as Team Zero, if the members' palaces are not destroyed, then the members of Team Zero will be immortal. Even if they are killed, they can still be resurrected. In other words, the body of Team Zero is not important, leaving the palace is the most important, so if you really want to be an enemy of Team Zero, after defeating all the members of Team Zero, don't forget to destroy Team Zero. The departure of the members prevents these guys from resurrecting after death, especially the departure of the monk. I always feel like Brother Beilong, you are thinking about something extremely dangerous right now. The monk who introduced the components of the Lingwang Palace to Beilong suddenly shuddered when Beilong was looking at the Palace of Departures in the sky. He turned around and saw Beilong narrowing his eyes slightly at the Palace of Departures in the sky. For a moment, drops of cold sweat broke out on the monk's forehead involuntarily. He felt that Beilong had completely seen through the secrets of the members of Team Zero. Ahem, Brother Beilong, let's get down to business. How about we go to the palace of Namaya Wang Yu first? Beilong rolled his eyes at the way Ikibe Hyasube, a dead Taoist friend but not a poor Taoist. He just thought about it, but he didn't expect Ikibe Hyasube to sense the danger instantly. Ha 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 ha, right, go to my place first, what fun is there in other people's palaces? Sword God Namaya Wang Yu laughed loudly. For Ermewu Wang Yu, Beilong also has to give a thumbs up. If nothing else, we already have a lot of outrageous people here. For example, Shu Xian, the grass python hero, Ning Kaichen, the ghost-riding real person, and Luo Shi, the caterpillar breeder, have all been played very pervert. But Nigaya Wang Yu is even more heavyweight, this one, Hikaru. Or the soul-cutting sword that I made myself. To put it bluntly, Beilong was afraid that when this guy got high, he would chop down JJ Lin, who knows all about it, with his own knife. Beilong has always been in awe of this kind of warrior, so cruel. The four of them also quickly arrived at Wang Yu's palace in Ermaya. Of course, Wang Yu was not that outrageous. He didn't come up and ask his swordsman to come up to serve him. Instead, he looked at Beilong, his eyes gleaming, and Beilong was a little nervous. Beilong, I don't have as far-sighted an idea as Hyasube. I see you just want to see the Zanpakuto on your waist. I wonder if you can lend me your sword. Ermewu Wang Yu looked at the knife on Beilong's waist and asked. Beilong thought that Ermewu Wang Yu wanted a boy plus a boy, so he was shocked. Give. Beilong casually took off the knife from his waist and threw it to Ermewu Wang Yu. This knife. Nigaya Wang Yu pulled out the Zanpakuto from its scabbard and carefully examined the patterns on the blade, with countless cold sweats breaking out on his forehead. What? Is there something wrong with this knife? Or is this knife not made by you? Beilong is also very curious. After all, the sealed state thing is indeed issued by Spiritual Arts Academy, but the kernel is the masterpiece of the system brother. It is indeed a knife made by me. The pattern is so beautiful. Just when Beilong was confused, Ermewu Wang Yu's voice sounded in his ears again. This guy is so narcissistic. Beilong's eyes twitched slightly when he heard this. Give the knife back to you. There is nothing wrong with your knife. I have an impression of this knife. It is definitely made by Laozi. So the problem is not with me, let alone the knife, so. Wang Yu said as he looked at the monk, Ikibe Hyasube, who had been silent. How? Beilong first took his Zanpakuto from Wang Yu's hand, and then followed Wang Yu's eyes to look at Ikibe Hyasube as well. That Beilong guy, you should know that my title is True Name Calling Monk, which means the person who calls out the real name. Everything in this soul society is named after me. This is why I can be promoted to level 0. The reason for the team is that every time a sealed state falls into the hands of the corresponding Shinigami, I will learn the true name of that sealed state. Hyasube looked at Beilong's confused eyes, scratched his cheek awkwardly, and then told Beilong about his ability. I understand, so what? Beilong nodded slightly, indicating that he knew how powerful Hyasube was, and asked what the relationship was between Hyasube's ability and his Zanpakuto. That's the problem. In all these years in Soul Society, I have never missed the true name of the sealed state. Hyasube said with a hint of pride. But it was only you who made the mistake. Immediately afterwards, Ikibe Hyasube spoke helplessly to Beilong like a deflated ball. You said the bankai of this sword is different from the bankai, you know. Beilong raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. Shikai's name is wrong too. Hyasube nodded, his big eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything in the world, looking at Beilong's sword full of doubts. How different is it from the name you know? Haha, let's not talk about how big the difference is. Anyway, as far as I know, not a single word matches the name I first learned. Ikibe Hyasube pretended to be humorous. Obviously, the sword in Beilong's hand is completely outside the scope of his ability. In other words, Ikibe Hyasube, who is born to be able to restrain all Shinigami, or to restrain everyone except the Soul King, has no way to do anything to Beilong. This is a big blow to Ikibe Hyasube. Especially when Beilong is about to master Bankai, Ikibe Hyasube has a hunch in his heart that as long as Beilong masters Bankai, not even the Soul King will pose any threat to Beilong. How about I study it for you? Beilong handed the knife to Ikibe Hyasube. No, please don't. Just hold it yourself, I won't touch it. Just hold this knife. Don't bring it near me. I'm timid and easily frightened. Ikibe Hyasube screamed as if his hair was fried, looking at the soul-cutting sword in Beilong's hand as if he was looking at the plague. Indeed, it is impossible for people who are not recognized by the holy sword to pick up the holy sword. For example, Nijuwu Wangyu is okay. After all, the sealed state where the holy sword is entrusted is made by someone else. Nijuwu Wangyu can take it. The soul-cutting sword is in the sealed state. But others can't, not even the soul-cutting sword in sealed state, unless Beilong allows it. If anyone else dares to touch it, there will only be one end, and that is to be burned to death by the sacred flame. No, monk, you are the captain of Team Zero, why are you so cowardly? Beilong complained. Ikibe Hyasube rolled his eyes, you are so brave, why are you trying to scare me? But Ikibe Hyasube is really uncomfortable. He has always restrained others by himself, but now he was restrained by a soul-cutting sword. If Ikibe Hyasube hadn't been so good at nourishing chi, he would be scolding her now. This thing is like the Spirit King designed it specifically for him. Ahem, now that we understand the problem of the soul-cutting sword, can we go see His Highness the Soul King? At this time, Hikafuna Kiryu's spiritual body transformation should have been completed. Ikibe Hyasube didn't dare at all. Carelessly, he spoke carefully. Looking at the humble look of this big boss who is said to be more difficult to deal with than you watch in many Shinigami novels, Beilong was also speechless. This guy is so cowardly. However, the renovation of Hikafuna Kiryu's side has indeed been completed, and the palace belonging to Hikafuna Kiryu is also slowly being built. Although Kirinji Tenshiro has been silent, it is obvious that his fear of Beilong is also increasing. Fortunately, with Unohana Retsu's affection, Kirinji Tenshiro thinks Beilong. It will still give him some face. After all, Kirinji Tenshiro is not so arrogant that he thinks even Ikibe Hyasube can't be beaten. He can kill him. Ikibe Hyasube also sent Beilong to Soul King Daiwai and said, I will send you here. No one else is allowed to enter unless His Highness Soul King has summoned him. Beilong nodded. He really didn't think that the Spirit King could pose any threat to him. After the development of the Fire Flame Sword, Liehuo reached 98%, although it was still unable to Bankai, it revealed an extremely special and invincible fantasy book, Surprise Sirens. This book has only one effect, and that is to modify existence. It can add and modify memories at will, and make things in memory become reality. As long as a person does not exist, then he really does not exist. Even Thomas, who has become a god and has mastered the fantasy omnipotent book, is not immune to the power of this book. Beilong doesn't think that the Spirit King who has now become a human stick has a stronger power than the fantasy omnipotent book. As soon as he entered the Spirit King's palace, Beilong saw the Spirit King sealed in the crystal. He said that he was a human stick. Not only the limbs, but also the internal organs of the thing in front of him no longer existed at all. However, after seeing Beilong enter, the four eyes on the Spirit King's head lit up, and a ray of light shot directly at Beilong, so fast that even Beilong couldn't avoid it. A force entered Beilong's body and wanted to transform Beilong. Beilong secretly thought that something was not right, so he quickly pulled out the soul-killing knife, and the fire sword burst out with powerful power. Directly integrated with the power entering Beilong's body. He didn't let this power transform Beilong's body. After this power was fused with the fire sword Liehuo, the appearance of the fire flame sword Liehuo changed drastically. The mastery of the fire flame sword Liehuo, which was originally 98%, instantly became 100%. The fire in Beilong's hand directly turned into the 10 sacred blades. And the mastery degree was directly increased to 50%. Beilong looked at this scene and broke into a cold sweat. The old Yin King, Ling Wang, is better than the one who played tricks on him. The part of the power that just entered his body was no other power, it was the remaining omniscient and omnipotent power of the Spirit King. If it weren't for the existence of the fire flame sword, Liehuo, who could Bankai as the 10 sacred blades, Beilong would really have been tricked by the Spirit King. Then the next Soul King may not be Yuach or him. After thinking about this, Beilong was so angry that he really wanted to kill the Spirit King with the 10 sacred blades on the spot. Don't doubt it, the 10 holy blades have this ability. But if the Spirit King is killed, the 10 sacred blades will have to exist as the Spirit King to stabilize the world. By then, Beilong's strength will be greatly reduced. This is not what Beilong wants, so Beilong suppresses his murderous intention. The Spirit King is definitely going to die anyway. At that time, it would be the best thing to let his good friend Harbok come up and chop him down. Just when Beilong was about to turn around and leave, a silver ray of light flew towards Beilong again. This time, the speed of the ray of light was such that Beilong could dodge it, but Beilong could clearly see what the ray of light was. A silver token fell into Beilong's hand. It was the token of the Spirit King. Seeing the token was like seeing the Spirit King himself. Obviously, this was the compensation given by the Spirit King to Beilong. This should be compensation for Beilong not becoming a candidate for the Spirit King. Beilong's face recovered a little, but the anger in his heart did not lessen. The Spirit King was dead. Beilong wrote down this calculation. Of course, this matter is not without its benefits. Beilong's 10 holy blades have already appeared, and he has mastered 50% of them. With the help of this power, his own Reiatsu has also been upgraded to a first-class spiritual power. With the addition of the 10 holy blades to the system, with the help of the blade, Beilong did not suffer any losses but made a huge profit. However, Beilong has no intention of continuing to stay in the Spirit King's palace. After this old man tricked him once, he will never do it a second time. Beilong also took back the 10 sacred blades and left the Spirit King. The Spirit King was still unconscious and thoughtless, quietly stabilizing the world. Seeing Beilong coming out of the Soul King's palace, Ikibe Hyasube quickly came up with other members of the Zero Division. Although Ikibe Hyasube is the actual person in power, he really doesn't know much about the Soul King. After all, he only holds part of the power, which is far from omniscient and omnipotent. Beilong coughed when he saw the 5 people coming up to him, took out the silver medal given to him by the Spirit King last and said, "Team Zero, come up and listen to the order." Seeing the silver medal in Beilong's hand, Ikibe Hyasube was stunned. Among all the people present, only Ikibe Hyasube understood the importance of this thing. It is no exaggeration to say that now that the Soul King is incapacitated, this brand even more useful than the Spirit King himself. Ikibe Hyasube reacted very quickly. He immediately knelt down on one knee and said, "I have met His Highness the Soul King." When Nameya Wang Yu and others saw that the boss Ikibe Hyasube was kneeling, they also knelt down on one knee and shouted that they had seen His Highness the Soul King. Beilong nodded with satisfaction and said, "Get up." Ikibe Hyasube stood up quickly and said in surprise, "Brother Beilong, you have gained a lot this time. This silver medal is equivalent to the visit of His Highness the Soul King himself." Beilong smiled and said, "I thought Lord Spirit King had something important to tell me, but I didn't expect that he just gave me this token. Lord Spirit King is really too polite." Ikibe Hyasube also laughed. The two of them had a tacit understanding and knew very well that this was definitely not the case. But now that this is the case, Ikibe Hyasube has no intention of getting to the bottom of it. Hikifuna Kiryu did have a sense of collapse in her worldview. Although she knew that the Soul King was in a bad state, she did not expect that the Soul King was as virtuous as he is now. Now Beilong is obviously the spokesperson of the Spirit King. Rather than serving the Spirit King, it is better to say that he serves Beilong. If that's the case, then I'll go back to Soul Society. Beilong has no intention of continuing to stay in the Soul King's palace. This place is not a place where he will stay for a long time. The Soul King's palace with nothing is really boring. Farewell, Lord Beilong. Ikibe Hyasube took the lead. Beilong also sat in the Tianju chariot and returned to Soul Society. This time, the Lingwang Palace and his team gained more than he imagined. In addition to their own breakthrough in strength, the entire Zero Division is now also under Beilong's control. Originally Beilong planned to use the surprise siren to brainwash Ikibe Hyasube and the others, but now it seems that there is no need for it. As long as the silver medal is in hand, Team Zero will be Beilong's private army. In other words, from now on, Soul Society already has its owner, but the owner does not want to get a broken Soul Society through violence. The Tianju chariot still landed at Shiba's house, and Yoruichi and Unohana also rushed to Shiba's house immediately. However, after returning to Soul Society, Beilong discovered that he had forgotten something. Wang Yu of Ermeya still had a special soul-cutting knife in his hand that he had not taken back. That Jijiba, this soul-cutting knife is very dangerous, but it is the safest in Beilong's hands. But there is no rush. I will go to the Lingwang Palace to get it next time. Anyway, it is easier for Beilong to go to the Lingwang Palace now than to go home. The silver medal not only represents the Spirit King, but can also contact members of the Zero Division. This is the most important role of the silver medal. There may be other functions of the silver medal, but Beilong has not discovered it yet. It will take a long time, so there is no rush. Nong, you're back. Beilong was in a daze outside Shiba's house. Yoruichi's surprised voice brought Beilong back to his senses. The fragrant breeze hit his face. Beilong subconsciously held Yoruichi in his arms. "Yoruichi, I'm back." Yoruichi nuzzled into Beilong's arms and said worriedly, "You've been there for 3 days, I thought something went wrong." "Has it been 3 days already? I didn't feel the passage of time in the Spirit King's palace." Beilong was also startled. It seemed that he spent 3 days digesting the remaining power of the Spirit King in the Spirit King's palace. It was something he didn't expect. Beilong rubbed Yoruichi's hair. Don't worry, your man is so strong, there is no one in the world who can kill your man. Yoruichi rolled his eyes at Beilong angrily and buried his head in Beilong's arms again. Yoruichi, can I go to your house to propose marriage tomorrow? Beilong said slowly. Really? Yoruichi heard Beilong's words and looked up at Beilong in surprise. Well, your old diehards will definitely marry you to me this time. Wave. Yoruichi stood up slightly on tiptoes and had a close encounter with Beilong. I can't write the process, but review it. After a while, Yoruichi left Beilong's arms with a blushing face, and Unohana Retsu, who had already been watching the show, appeared. Lang, welcome back. Lai, I'm back. With the same operation, Beilong held Unohana Retsu in his arms. In fact, Unohana Retsu was only about 160, which was much shorter than Beilong, a man who was almost 190. That means his usual aura was too strong, making Unohana Retsu seem very tall. High average. Retsu, you want to marry me too? Beilong settled the matter directly without asking for Unohana Retsu's opinion. Okay, I'll listen to you. Maojihua was like a little daughter-in-law, not rejecting Beilong's words at all. After being gentle for a while, Beilong also took Unohana and Yoruichi back to Seraiti. Yoruichi did not go to the 4th Division with Beilong this time, but returned home. She had to inform her family in advance. Back at the 4th Division, his 3 young apprentices also hurried over to visit Beilong, not to mention having fun. Beilong didn't stay in the 4th Squadron for long, and turned around and went to the 1st Squadron. Whether it's what happened at the Spirit King's palace or tomorrow's marriage proposal, you have to talk to Yamamoto Genryusai. Otherwise, Old Man Shan will definitely beat him severely with Ryujin Jakka if he knows that Beilong did it without telling him. His ass. Old Man Shan, I'm back. Beilong still opened the door loudly and gave his dear master a big blow. Yamamoto Genryusai, who was sitting in the room leisurely drinking tea, saw the sullen look of his traitor and said angrily, You. He turned into a monster right after he came back. Beilong didn't care what Yamamoto Genryusai said. He smiled and sat down in front of Yamamoto Genryusai and said, Didn't I just come back to visit you? Come on. If you don't cause trouble for me, I'll burn it. Yamamoto rolled his eyes at Beilong. Over the years, Beilong has caused troubles in Soul Society, which is not a good thing to say. If his teacher hadn't been Yamamoto Genryusai, the Seraiti group of nobles would have come to trouble him long ago. Okay, stop talking nonsense, kid. If you have something to say, get out of here. Hehe, since you have spoken, master, I will tell the truth. Beilong also stopped playing around, became serious, and told everything that happened in the Spirit King's palace. Of course, he would not talk about the fact that the Fire Flame Sword and Liehuo absorbed the Spirit King's omniscient and omnipotent ability. He only talked about the Spirit King. I was optimistic about him and gave him the silver medal. Yamamoto Genryusai nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, You really gained a lot this time. So, Team Zero is also following your orders now. Beilong nodded first, then shook his head slightly and said, It's just a token. It's not that easy to mobilize the Zero Division. Okay, now that you understand this, it's good. However, as long as you get stronger and stronger, even the Zero Division can only obey your orders. Yamamoto Genryusai was very happy to see that Beilong didn't need to remind him. After serving as captain for so many years, the old man has long wanted to find a suitable successor to retire. After all, according to the old man's Reiatsu, there is no problem in maintaining his middle-aged appearance. If he hadn't been dragged down by the trivial matters of Gotei 13 for so many years, the old man would not be as old as he is now. By the way, master, I have another thing. Beilong was also a little embarrassed. It was indeed his first time to get married in his 2 lifetimes, and he didn't know what to do. Yamamoto Genryusai was a little confused when he saw Beilong's coquettish look. This was the first time he saw his apprentice like this. Well, master, I'm going to Shihuin's house tomorrow to propose marriage. Master, please come with me. Beilong also gritted his teeth. After hearing Beilong's words, Yamamoto Genryusai was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, that couldn't be better, it's great, one of my apprentices is finally getting married. Old man Shan looked at Beilong with eyes full of love. I don't know what to say about your two senior brothers. They are a playboy and a sick boy. They haven't had a family for so many years. They are still my beloved disciples. This is the time. In less than 100 years, we will start a family. Yes, Beilong has become a beloved disciple again. Beilong was relieved when he saw that Yamamoto Genryusai agreed. After all, in Seoul society, Old Man Shan was considered his family, and he felt more confident to have Old Man Yamamoto propose marriage. The next day, Yamamoto and Beilong went to Shihuin's house to propose marriage with prepared gifts. The Shihuin family had already made preparations. Shihuin himself was happy to see his granddaughter get married to Yamamoto Genryusai's apprentice. The old man Kiani thought about it and realized that he was inexplicably higher than Yamamoto Yuan. Lu Jai is a generation old. The main opposition comes from the old immortals within. They feel that although the disciples of Yamamoto Genryusai have a noble status, they are not high enough to marry the head of their Shihuin family. After all, Yoruichi is not someone else. If he is a genius, he can marry him casually, but Yoruichi is the face of the Shihuin family in Seraiti. How can the head of the family marry someone? However, with Beilong's return from the Spirit King's palace, Beilong's relationship with the Zero Division has also affected the opinions of a group of Shihuin family elders. Now the two parties are divided between 40 and 60, with less than half of the people believing that Yoruichi cannot marry. So when Yamamoto Genryusai and Beilong came to Shihuin's house, they received a warm welcome. Ha 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 ha, Captain, long time no see. Shihuin, the former head of the family, also personally greeted him at the gate. When Yamamoto Genryusai saw his old friend coming out to greet him, he knew that this matter was closely connected today. So he also smiled and said, Chienri, long time no see. You must know the reason why I came to visit you this time. It's not that my incompetent apprentice has fallen in love with the princess of your Shihuin family. As a master, I can only come here shamelessly. Proposed marriage. Yamamoto Genryusai has been the captain for so many years, and he speaks these words freely. Come on, Beilong, come over and let Chienri take a good look. As he said that, Yamamoto waved Beilong forward. I met the former head of the Shihuin family. Beilong also said politely. Shihuin Kiani also looked at Beilong with satisfaction. Yoruichi had already said that Beilong's Reiatsu had reached the second-class spiritual power. Combined with Beilong's identity, it was obvious that the position of captain must be his. It's really good. What a talented person. Let's go, Captain, let's talk in the house. With that, Shihuin Chiani led Yamamoto Genryusai and Beilong into Shihuin's house. Although the Shihuin family is not as rich as the Kuchiki family, the area occupied by the family is still quite large. The three of them walked for a while before arriving at the living room of the Shihuin family. The elders of the Shihuin family are also waiting here for the Beilong's arrival. After Beilong and the other three entered the living room, they arranged the seats according to the host and guest positions. Shihuin Chienri also sent someone to serve tea. Our Shihuin family agrees with Vice Captain Beilong's proposal to marry Yoruichi. However, it is not easy to marry the head of our family. Vice Captain Beilong still needs to show his strength. Shihuin after Chienri finished drinking tea, he spoke calmly. This is as it should be. Shihuin Chienri also asked Beilong to flex his muscles and show his abilities so that he could stop the mouth of the Shihuin family elder. Beilong had long expected this to happen, and without showing his strength, he directly took out the silver medal of the Spirit King from his arms. Why not use it if there was Wang's awe? Seeing the silver medal in Beilong's hand, everyone in the Shihuin family present was startled. They hurriedly knelt down on one knee and saluted, I have met Lord Spirit King. Except for Yamamoto Genryusai, everyone including Shihuin Seni was dumbfounded. Many Shihuin elders who opposed this marriage were kneeling and thinking to themselves, if you have this thing, you should take it out earlier. Can we still object? Beilong and Shihuin Yoruichi are a match made in heaven, why should they get married? Beilong also made up a marriage granted by the Soul King himself. After all, the silver medal is in his hands, so that's not what he said. The Shihuin family will obey the order of King Ling. Shihuin Chienri took the lead and agreed. Beilong also took back the silver medal. Only then did Yamamoto Genryusai say with a smile, "Oh, Chiani, what are you doing? It's my fault for not saying hello to you in advance." Yamamoto Genryusai is also a bad guy, just teasing the elders of the Shihuin family. This makes these old guys very angry. Like a teacher, like a disciple. This guy Beilong hates people so much. He just learned from his teacher. Shihuin Chiani also gave Yamamoto Genryusai an angry look, and then stood up with the elders of the Shihuin family. The Shihuin family really has nothing to do against Beilong's master and apprentice. As long as Beilong holds the silver medal for a day, the entire noble family will have to treat Beilong as an ancestor, otherwise some blind nobleman will make Beilong unhappy. Beilong directly used the sign to say that he was going to rebel. I believe Yamamoto Genryusai is very willing to lead people to kill all these nobles. Yamamoto Genryusai didn't kill these nobles, mainly because there was no legitimate reason. Now his apprentice has such a big killer in his hands. If the blind man offends Yamamoto Genryusai, look at Yamamoto Genryusai's Ryujin Jakka. Can you lift it? Now that the marriage is confirmed, the next step is to discuss the wedding date. Beilong can't get in the way and leaves it to Yamamoto Genryusai to handle. Beilong was led to see Yoruichi. The main room. As soon as Beilong came in, he saw Yoruichi wearing a light blue floral kimono. Today's Yoruichi is nothing like usual. Yoruichi usually wears clothes to facilitate fighting, and how to do it without affecting his movements. This was the first time Beilong saw Yoruichi put on regular clothes. The usual single ponytail has been tied up, and there are many expensive accessories on her head. The light blue kimono on her body makes Yoruichi's appearance even more beautiful. "Lang, you're here." Completely different from the usual carefree Yoruichi, Yoruichi's voice today was more like a little woman's, which made Beilong even wonder if Yoruichi had been taken away. Yoruichi, who usually looks like a tomboy, can be so gentle sometimes. Beilong also stepped forward, sat down and took Yoruichi's slender hand. "From today on, we are an unmarried couple. If you don't call me husband, let me hear it." Yoruichi gave Beilong a nice roll of his eyes and weakly called, "Husband." Hearing this sentence, Beilong's soul almost flew out of his head. Good guy, a woman is acting like a coquettish girl. Is she so powerful? Seeing Beilong's reaction, Yoruichi said angrily, "I'm following your wishes, but you reacted like this." Seeing the familiar Yoruichi, Beilong breathed a sigh of relief, stretched out his hand to hold Yoruichi in his arms and said, "Isn't this not something I'm used to? It's more natural like this." Yoruichi rolled his eyes at Beilong, and found a comfortable position to lean against in Beilong's arms. Beilong played with Yoruichi's little hand and said, "How are you, my Mrs. Yoruichi, are you ready to marry me?" Virtue. Yoruichi pinched Beilong's waist. It didn't move, but it made his fingers hurt a little. Beilong smiled, lowered his head slightly, and took 2 pieces of Yoruichi's sakura lips. This time, he was legal and could do whatever he wanted. Yoruichi was also very cooperative, and the two of them got closer unknowingly. After the marriage was settled, Yamamoto and Beilong also left the Shihuin family, and both of them were very happy. But there is still someone waiting for him at Beilong's house. Yoruichi's proposal is over, and Unohana Retsu's side can't favor one over the other. Maujawajai. Beilong also proposed again, but for Unohana Retsu, she actually doesn't care about these formal things. After all, the way she and Beilong usually get along is that of a couple. But Unohana Retsu was still very happy when she heard Beilong proposed. Beilong is also certain of one thing. Even for a strange woman like Unohana Retsu, the sense of ritual is very important. In this way, everyone in Seraiti knew that Beilong, the vice captain of the 4th Division and a close disciple of Captain Yamamoto, was getting married. Still marrying 2 at once, and the status of each wife is so noble. As soon as this news came out, the hearts of all those who admired Unohana Retsu were broken. Shihuin Yoruichi doesn't have many admirers. Because of her different status, everyone knows that they have no chance, but Unohana Retsu is the goddess of the entire Seraiti. When the 4th team recruits new recruits, they rely on Unohana Retsu's portrait to attract new recruits. Even this painting was painted by Sister Wa herself. Hearing the news that she was getting married, it really broke the hearts of many people. Even Yamada Shinosuke, who was already married and worked as the deputy director of the herbal medicine hospital, heard the news and went home and secluded himself for several days. I had a lot of drunken meals. 3 months later, the weddings of Baelong, Yunohana and Yoruichi were also held. The people who came to attend their wedding were people of very high status. In the entire Gotei 13, basically all the captains and deputy captains came. Except for the 10th Division, which had no captain, the 11th Division captain who was a fool and didn't arrive, and the 12th Division, which was temporarily vacant, the rest of the team sent their blessings. Jashiro Yukitake finally recovered from his illness and was the first to arrive to send blessings. The same is true for Kyoraku Shunsui, but he, who has always been friends with Jashiro Yukitake, did not come with Jashiro Yukitake. On the wedding day, Kyoraku Shunsui smiled very reluctantly, as if he was not really happy. Especially after the witness Yamamoto Genryusai patted Baelong on the shoulder and said that this is his best and most outstanding apprentice, Kyoraku Shunsui's face became even more ugly. All this was seen by Aizen Sosuke, who was attending the wedding, and the light in Aizen's eyes became even brighter. But this has nothing to do with Baelong. Baelong's current thinking is, "Ladies, here I come. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."